Acosta immediately up into third place, but it's Bez that leads it in a Aprilia 1-2 once again.
Well, the poor start, as you said, for Quartararo, but he has at least limited the damage somewhat, and this is perfect for Marco Bezzecchi. That's exactly what he would have wanted to achieve on this first lap. Get out front, pull an advantage out, so the long laps aren't going to cost you as much.
Acosta, brilliant, he's got the inside line there, using every single pony underneath him there. Acosta versus Fernandez behind him.
Zarco straight to the Belcher, that will be a fast old crash at Duan corner. There's surely now he's going to go straight on into the long lap penalty loop. Ralph Fernandez then takes the lead of the Australian Grand Prix. Acosta will also go through into second place.
Oh, Jack Miller's gone down. Jack Miller has crashed out of podium contention here.
Here he comes into the long lap penalty loop. Bezzecchi then rejoins behind Digia in 6th place.
Well, that's the easy as you like, isn't it, for Alex Marquez? No competition in terms of top speed there between Alex and Quartararo. Digia upwardly mobile in this Australian Grand Prix, now in P4. Gian Antonio might be one corner away from the podium here in Filipani. Certainly is on the inside of Acosta. He goes. Acosta's been pushed off the podium now, back into P4.
Look at the 37, just pulling up alongside him.
He's just running a little bit hot, and that's allowed for Gian Antonio to come back through. He's just taking second. I was going to say he's taking second on this lap. He takes it immediately.
With 4 laps to go, he was salvaging some pride from this Grand Prix, but he crashes with 4 laps to go.
Bezzecchi, he's coming down the hill into turn 10. There's nothing that Alex can do about that. This has been some salvage mission by Bez.
Few better places than Phillip Island to take any MotoGP victory, but the first MotoGP victory always the most special, and Ralph Fernandez can reach out and touch it.
First time winner in MotoGP, and it is the phenomenal Ralph Fernandez in Phillip Island who wins the Australian Grand Prix. Gian Antonio fights his way through from 10th up into 2nd place. Marco Bezzecchi, after his 2 long laps, does indeed rescue a podium. Marco Bezzecchi has delivered an incredible comeback here in Mandalika to take the sprint victory. Wow, what a sprint! Probably the best sprint we've seen of the season so far, and now they get so near yet so far.
Ada di deskripsi ya kan.
We're live at the Indonesian Grand Prix. We're moving to the live feed. Lights out, and we're racing here in Mandalika.
Kita balapan dulu ya.
The Marco Bezzecchi's gaining strong position. Another shocking side go backwards once again. But it's Pedro Acosta leads from Luca Marini in second.
Iya kan? Gratis, langsung dari Jerman.
Yes, that's it. It's Bezzecchi. It's Marquez and Marco Bezzecchi. That's a massive crash early on here.
Aku mau jalan ini orang.
Bezzecchi and Marc Marquez out of contention. A jump start, and now Joan Mir has crashed out of contention as well after the contact at turn 10. Aldeguer goes on the inside of Marini. Aldeguer now up into 2nd place. Starts the pursuit of Acosta. Here is Aldeguer taking the lead of this Grand Prix for the first time. He's got the job done up at turn 10. Acosta now, what does he got in terms of retaliation on the factory KTM? Bagnaia down and well and truly out. Last and lost. Here comes Marini, darting to the inside line there. Acosta immediately tries to fight. This battle raging at the moment between Acosta and Marini.
Acosta He's going to come back at this surely up the inside of Marini. Who has to try and jump out of the way. Marini knows he's faster here, but Acosta's just not letting it go.
You can just see Acosta there.
Ralph Fernandez, if Marini's not going to go on the attack, then Ralph Fernandez is more than happy to.
Yeah, and he just parked in the middle of that turn 16. He's got the inside. Oh! Big run there between Ralph Fernandez and Marini. That's allowed the door wide open
That's
for
the
Alex
problem.
Rins to move up into the podium places. Alex Marquez then now picks up Ralph Fernandez. Marini almost lost the front, didn't he? Going into the braking zone for the first corner. With Alex Rins, it's getting better. Briefly through on Acosta into 12. We know how good Acosta's been on that left-hander through 13. Alex Marquez pings it on the inside of Acosta. Acosta desperately trying to fight back. Alex Marquez able to find a way through on Rins into second place. As Acosta then now goes back on the inside of Rins. I think Rins has just completely barbecued that soft rear tyre.
Pedro Acosta is just not letting it rest on this. He's definitely going to come on the inside. Of course he is. Acosta's not going to give this second place up.
A nod of the head, a nod of approval from Aldeguer as he comes out of the final corner. It has been without question phenomenal from Aldeguer here in the Grand Prix of Indonesia. What a performance, what a dominant victory by the rookie. Further back, huge credit goes to Pedro Acosta. Alex Marquez is on the podium despite the late charge from Binder and Marini. Second youngest ever MotoGP winner at the age of 20 years and 183 days is Fermin Aldeguer.
Yang menonton ada
Lights out the racing here in Japan in the sprint. Oh, the driver further back. I think the two are pretty down. Marco Bezzecchi has gone down. His fourth big injury though of the season. Jorge Martin suffered a fractured right collarbone after big contact with his teammate Marco Bezzecchi. Bagnaia is back. Pole position and sprint victory double.
Ya ada 15 menit
Marco
ya.
Bagnaia back in business.
Ya ada 15 menit lagi yang mau bikin
Today
kopi.
is the big one. The moment of truth has arrived for the 93 here in Japan. The comeback has been loading. Marc Marquez just 24 laps away from being in seventh heaven. The green flag clears at the back. Lights out and we're racing his potential title decider here in Matang. It's a great start from pole position by Pecco Bagnaia. Mia has a mistake on the factory Honda on the brakes into turn one. Marc Marquez up into P3. Acosta's been rapid away from the second pro on the grid. He's up in a second.
Quartararo past the 36-2, so the factory Yamaha start is up into 4.
Bagnaia has had the dream start, hasn't he?
Mir now attacking on Quartararo. Mir goes through into 4th place.
Game gak di asli emang.
Quartararo. He left the door open, I think, to Quartararo going into turn 5. Well, that mistake at turn 5 from Quartararo has seen him drop from 4th to 8th.
Quartararo had gone wide. Ralph Fernandez is piling on the pain for the 2021 World Champion.
Bezzecchi
coming through.
Launches it. Bezzecchi then finally has got through. Mia.
He's still in this run for the podium.
Acosta's really struggling. Marc has made the move up into P2. Acosta looks like he's really struggling at the moment with grip on those Michelin tyres. What a weekend for Mir. He's going for it into 7 he goes. Joan Mir then does fight his way through up into 3rd place. Oh, what's going on with Bagnaia? Bagnaia's got smoke. A few gut-wrenching moments inside that factory Ducati garage. Now Bezzecchi goes on the inside of Acosta.
As
lagi
Costa
nih.
sailed well up the racetrack, just could not slow
13
that
menit lagi
KTM
ya.
down. He's lost much more now than 6th place.
Well, that's
Jangan
clear. That's the
kemana-mana.
biggest
Plume
puff
we've
of
seen so
smoke we
far.
have seen. Are we going to get a dramatic late plot twist here in Motegi?
So clearly at this stage, it's only smoke, not fluids, coming out of the Ducati. If that changes, then Pecco Bagnaia might get pulled off the road.
No dramas at the moment for Bagnaia.
Nih, gua bedain tandanya.
A career reborn at Ducati.
Link
Resilience,
nonton
matched
ada
by pure
di
brilliance.
deskripsi.
Pecco Bagnaia will win the
12
Japanese
menit
Grand
lagi ya.
Prix, but from career saving surgery in Minnesota back to the top step of the podium Motorland, the crowning glory here in Motegi is the comeback to top all comebacks. Marc Marquez is the 2025 MotoGP World Champion. Monday Sporting
gratis,
Titans have been
ya.
hailed for producing amazing comebacks. Now Marc Marquez surely has to be mentioned in the same breath and clinches his 7th MotoGP World Championship. The comeback king has taken the throne once again.
11 menit lagi. Kita mulai.
Was difficult, was super difficult, but now I'm in pace.
Yang mau ngopi-ngopi dulu masih bisa, masih sempat 11 menit lagi ya.
Marc Marquez is down at turn 15. His sprint run is over.
It is his first big Saturday slip-up of the season. Ducati's golden run in the sprint is over. Simply the best in San Marino. Marco Bezzecchi completes a sensational Saturday. Welcome one and all to Grand Prix of San Marino. All eyes on pole position.
The riders now get set for action here at Misano.
Lights out, and we're racing here on the GP in Misano. Great start from pole position, and Marco Bezzecchi. Bez has made the perfect start.
Yang belum bikin kopi
As
dulu.
Mark closes right onto the rear tyre.
10 menit lagi bakal dimulai.
That's Acosta getting on the inside of the Gian Antonio. Up now into 6th. Marco, I thought he was going to try and line up that move on Bezzecchi. Acosta now. Up into 5th.
Acosta's preferred passing point is coming up into Coentia.
Quartararo tries desperately to tough it out in the braking zone. With Acosta now up into 4th.
Pedro Acosta, he's going to think about a podium. Oh, he's
broke down.
He's broken down.
Been an embarrassing weekend with the factory KTM team.
So Brad Binder's problem on Friday has been repeated.
What an absolute shocker for KTM.
Veda Pratama
As that's
kedua
Pecco
3 ya.
Bagnaia now on the floor. A home Grand Prix to forget for Pecco.
A 2025 to forget
Oh, banget
for
sih.
Bagnaia. Marco Bezzecchi, he's under big pressure though right now, isn't he, from Marc? Oh, Bez has made a mistake. Marc Marquez make that move on Bez to take the lead here in Misano. More misery for Bagnaia. Marco Bezzecchi, absolutely phenomenal. A 131.357 from Bez,
What, yeah?
fastest lap of the Grand Prix.
Oh, bot.
Marc just cannot shake him off.
Marc Marquez responds with one of his own.
It has been another Misano masterclass
9
from
menit lagi ya.
Marc. He takes the
9
checker
menit
flag,
lagi yang
just
mau
over half a second
posisi.
clear of Bezzecchi.
Ih, Veda ada di Veda ke 23 coy. Susah ngeliatnya, jauh banget ke bawah. Nah, jauh banget ke bawah.
That is revenge.
Lihat ya. Bawah nih. Ah. Datang nggak? Gue gedein ya. Ah, Veda. Nih. 23. Kapan menit lagi mulai? Kapan menit lagi mulai? Veda kesayangan kedua tiga. Mana pendukungnya Veda? Jangan sedih ya, dia 23 ya. 6 menit lagi. Sabar ya, 6 menit lagi. 6 menit lagi. Wah. Menit lagi akan dimulai. Udah masuki 5 menit lagi. Yang mau bikin kopi dulu. Masih sempat. Belum, masih sempat. Link ada di deskripsi ya bagi yang mau nonton live-nya langsung. Ada di deskripsi. Apa gitu?
An hour or so from picturesque Dresden and buried deep in the forests of eastern Germany, Moto3 takes on the Sachsenring for round 11 of the season. The halfway points upon us, the most exciting sport on earth is set to deliver the goods once again. welcome to practice on Friday.
Bikin kopi dulu ya.
Good afternoon and welcome back live and trackside as we continue our coverage on day one of the 2026 Sirkuit Grand Prix of Germany here at the Sachsenring. We've been coming here since 1998, but the Sachsenring in a German GP itself can trace its roots back to 1927 when it was held on public roads in the surrounding areas. The permanent circuit built for 1998 has seen us call the Sachsenring home ever since. Moto3 practice coming up first this afternoon, and some news to break is that David Almanza will also sit out this session with illness. He had a fever this morning and it's been decided that the best thing that can happen is that he's reviewed tomorrow ahead of FP2. But should he take to the track at all this weekend, he'll find himself in Q1 automatically and with a mountain to climb. Kiko Giles and Elliot York here taking you through this one as always. Bad news for the number 22L. It's got to be said, he was in some good form, just moved up into third in the championship. Let's hope he's okay to get back on track tomorrow and make a fist of things on Sunday. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, mate, and hello to everyone tuning in for this afternoon's practice sessions. Yes, excited for this. Unfortunately, won't be featuring David Almanza. A real shame, he's not had his fair share of luck so far this season with injuries and illness. Of course, qualified on pole position over at Mugello, then missed the Sunday Grand Prix through illness. Suffered that fractured elbow over in Brazil as well, and now a heavy bout of flu. Unfortunately, it takes a lot to keep these riders off track, so it must be a pretty bad illness for David Almanza. Of course, the team's home Grand Prix this weekend, and with David Munoz still sidelined through injury, it was David Almanza who was going to be their lead rider this weekend, and a real chance of victory as well, given recent form and the form all season long when Almanza has been on track. So sending David get well soon. Fingers crossed we'll see him out on track tomorrow morning for FP2.
Ada di deskripsi ya. Gua nggak berani kalau ini takut kena hak kita.
Qualifying 1 and potentially qualifying 2 later on tomorrow, but that is to come. Unfortunately, Almanza won't be on track for practice this afternoon, which is a shame because he would have been one of the riders you do expect fighting right at the sharp end, as this rider was this morning.
Nanti di deskripsi, tonton sendiri aja ya.
Very strong indeed, wasn't he? Ahead of Valentin Peroni by just under 0.2 of a second. Guido Pini was top Honda in third. Just if I can, just to carry on with that Almanza thing for a moment, that means we're reduced, at least in this session, down to 24 because Zen Matani, you'll be aware, Zen Matani had a crash in Assen and has badly done his hand and his wrist there. He's waiting for surgery for a little longer than he anticipated. Got that done earlier on in this week, but that means he's not here at the Sachsenring. Silverstone is the target for him, and he's not been replaced, whereas David Almanza was meant to be out there, of course, and isn't at the moment. Some other bits of housekeeping: Eduardo Gutierrez is in for Ruche Moodley, as well as Marcus Uriarte still deputising for David Munoz. So there is at the moment no Team Dave.
No Team Dave, as you like to call them, and I like to call them as well. Yeah, unfortunately for, as I say, the home team this weekend, the Liqui Moly Dynavolt Intact GP team, currently none of their full-time riders on track, sending everyone who isn't here a get well soon. Zen Matani, Ruche Moodley, and of course David Munoz as well. If you weren't with us this morning, and you've probably seen online that he's undergone another operation, 11 in the last few months now for Munoz. Ridiculously bad luck for Munoz, who of course we were fully expecting to mount a title charge this season. A speedy recovery for Munoz, for everyone who isn't here, of course, for Matani and Moodley as well, but especially for Munoz, who going under the knife once or twice is bad enough. To do that 11 times must take a hell of a lot out of you, and just hope for Munoz he's in a decent headspace and just returns to the track when he's ready, and fingers crossed it's a smooth sailing through.
We know that David Munoz has got plenty of fight in him, so I'm sure that he will be chomping at the bit to get back out on track. Speaking of which, we are back out on track. 35 minutes Moto3 practice action is is underway. What you saw this morning has zero bearing on what you're about to see now, but this does have a bearing on qualifying. Your top 14 riders in this one will move directly through into Q2. Everyone else will be forced to go into the jungle of Q1, where the top 4 will be seeded into joining the already seeded 14 today. Q1 and Q2 obviously getting our qualifying program underway tomorrow at 12:45 local time, and you can join myself and Lewis Sudderby up here in comms for that one. Elliot York will be patrolling pit lane here. At least the longest straight here is only 700 metres long, and it is the front straight, so you'll be all right this week.
Yeah, should be all right, shouldn't I? And
Bit hilly,
the weather, bit hilly, but the weather is also a little bit kinder than it was over at the Dutch Grand Prix as well here in Germany. Look how many tents and caravans and whatnot are in the background there. Such a well-supported Grand Prix, well over 100,000 tickets sold. Won't be that many today, of course, on a Friday, but Saturday and Sunday, really excited to see this place at full capacity. It's one of the ones I would recommend people come into if you ever get the chance, if you're in Europe or outside of Europe and fancy a Grand Prix in this part of the world. Then the Sachsenring, you can't really go too much wrong with this place.
Just about to say exactly the same. It's the one where you always say, if you want to do MotoGP properly, you don't even have to camp. You can stay in one of the small towns just all around here. Uberlingbitz isn't too far away where we were playing football last night, Al. There's some great places, some great undiscovered gems in this part of Germany. You're not that far away from Chemnitz. We spoke about Chemnitz this morning. Dresden is gorgeous, an hour away, or just over an hour away from here, so plenty of flights in there. It's one of those ones where really you do get rewarded for a sense of exploration, similar to Brno as well. That's another. Austria's a belter. Jerez, another one. Le Mans as well. And we don't need to go on about Mugello. We know how special Mugello is, but there's a real good cluster of European rounds that are perhaps slightly more underrated than their big heavyweights of, like I say, Mugello. Assen is another, as well as Barcelona. There's some real good ones that you can get stuck into. Oh, dear me, talking of getting stuck in. That is a Max Keeler's fall, and that is a big one at turn 7. Max Keeler's has taken a bit of a battering here. The stretcher has come out. Turn 7 is the downhill left-hander. It's not quite the bottom of the hill, I don't believe. It's this one here. Oh, what has happened there? He's been run over by his bike as he's fallen off. He must have had a massive rear-end moment and almost saved her, but Max Keeler, your championship leader by 90 points, has brought out the yellow flags here at turn 7, 3 minutes into the session, and Max Keeler's, the last time we saw him was yet to really get properly on his feet. Nico Terol in the box watches on, as do we up here in Coventry, but that was a big one for Max Keeler. That's the biggest one of his season so far. Yeah, turn 7 is where this Sachsenring circuit really opens up, pretty much full chat through the left-hander of 7, and a big one for Keeler's drama then here. Early doors in practice, and that motorcycle took a bit of a battering as well. The main thing is, of course, is for Keeler's. Hopefully he's going to be all okay, because there's not many places on this Sachsenring circuit, anywhere on the calendar, you don't want to crash anywhere. But 7, 8 through 9, 10 and 11 down into 12 as well. Fast places here at the Sachsenring, especially turn 7. The yellow flags have cleared, which is good news, which means Keeler's and the bike are at least on the service road part, which is good. Fingers crossed though Keeler's is all okay, because that was a quick one. Two things to touch on here, El. The first one is in Moto3 and Moto2, one bike only. That bike took an absolute flyer, so the Aspar team now are going to be rounding up the mechanics probably on both sides of the box if they can afford to, and getting that bike fixed as well as possible and as quickly as possible, should Max Keeler be able to get back out onto the track. The second thing is where he's crashed on the outer loop, so the Sachsenring, if you look at it on a map, we're right in the middle of the track here. The start-finish straight hasn't changed at all in 100 years of this place being here, but the permanent circuit loops back round, and we are right in the middle. And Max Keeler's probably crashed at a point where he couldn't be much further away from pit lane, so we've got to wait a little bit to even get the bike back. So there's a couple of things there to keep an eye on. When that Max Keeler's number 28 CF Moto Gariotta Aspar machine comes back rolling through pit lane, and when the rider comes back, and also what state it's in and how quick they can get it fixed. Yeah, fast corner, that turn 7. Remember in 2023, Marc Marquez crashed there in warm-up. I think that was the sort of straw that broke the camel's back for Marc Marquez and Honda. I think it was his 5th or 6th crash of the weekend back here in 2023.
and of course Marc Marquez works very, very closely with Max Quiles as well. Fingers crossed Quiles is all okay, but back on with the action drama though for the championship leader early doors in practice.
I can remember another one there, Ali, 2009. I think it was Nicky Hayden and Nicolo Canepa. I can't remember which way round it was. It may have been Nicky Hayden who high-sided and cannoned himself to Nicolo Canepa, who was on the outside. That was in MotoGP qualifying. That was in the rain as well. So turn 7, we have seen those big high sides before, but very, very rarely in Moto3 because they're going pretty steady round there, as in fast, but there's not too much lean angle.
Pretty sure this is where Matteo Bertelli at turn 7 a couple of years ago did his knee ligaments as well. A high side out of there in the race as well. So yeah, turn 7 has caught out the best and the very best in Moto3.
Kok tahu ke 19 sih?
90 points clear of
Astaga.
in the championship. A quiet morning this morning for Quiles, P11.
8 ya?
Not the way he would have wanted to start his afternoon session here at the Sachsenring. So hopefully for Quiles and the team's sake, he can get back out in the final 28 minutes at some point to get a couple of laps on the board, no matter how many it is. Get back out there, try and iron out any of the issues before you go into Saturday morning, because as things stand, this session is crucial for Quiles as well. But
26-1 already in the opening 7 minutes of this one thus far, and that has been set by Brian Uriarte on the 26-110. Just 300 of a second ahead of Joel Kelso, and then Jesus Rios, who worth noting, Jesus Rios and Max Quiles had a little bit of a, I wouldn't say coming together, but an on-track escapade earlier. Rios was coming through the final corner and indicated, well, was slow on the racing line and indicates coming to pit lane. That was indeed enough by the stewards. He's not been given a heavy penalty. It was a official warning, so do it again and you find yourself probably with a long one.
Yeah, exactly that. Just wasn't quite aware of the surroundings, was he, Rios, coming towards the end of the session. Maybe just thought everyone had crossed the line, took the checkered flag, but Quiles was on a quick lap behind him, and you've got to be a little bit more aware. So yeah, right for the stewards to give Rios a bit of a warning, a bit of a slap on the hand, and just say if you do that again, you're going to be heading for a penalty, which is obvious. Rios will know that as well. Just a little bit of a mistake. These things can happen, not the first nor the last time to see that in 2026.
Nico Salmela at the moment coming across the line in 7th place. He was 8th and 5th in the Red Bull Rookies races here at the Sachsenring, so he's got good pedigree around here, Salmela, and he's in a good vein of form as well. It's fair to say that the 11th place that's the official classification is going to give him from Assen is probably not representative of where we expect him to be, because he was across the 9 in 5th. He had a double long lap penalty equivalent added onto his time at the end of the race, because the long lap penalty lane in Assen was not active for the Moto3 Grand Prix. But Rico Salmela is finding his feet now in Moto3.
Yeah, it certainly is. I'll be, if I'm in Rico's shoes, I'll be taking that P5 and taking the result sheets before it added the 6-second penalty. It was unfortunate, really, that the long lap penalty over in Assen on the Sunday morning for Moto3 was wet. Another crash then down at turn 7. This is not going to be a slow one, as we saw for Maximo Quiles.
Remember, was it last year at Senna Aegis in Moto2, that massive save coming through there? So you can maybe save it and run it out towards the barrier, but judging by where that yellow
so I'd be green power machine potentially.
Yeah, I think that is either Cruces or Ogden, and confirmation on the screen it is Adrian Cruces, with Guido Pini as well. Well, that is quite big, and we can see the number 94 walking away and the bike as well, and also Cruces running. Here we go. Oh dearie me, this is going to be scary, and it's a high side for Pini, which leaves Cruces with nowhere to go. And that is a big old fall at turn 7 in the opening stages. It's just like I was saying earlier on with the incident with Canepa and Hayden, who crashed there together. There's not a lot of room, there's not a lot you can even do, but great to see both riders at least up on their feet.
Yeah, exactly that. Cruces just taking a little bit longer to get back up on his feet, but just saw him there on the service road trying to sort the bike out. Again, Cruces in the wrong place at the wrong time. Of course, he was involved in that Carpe incident when Carpe crashed over at turn 5 in Assen, just in front of him, left Cruces with absolutely nowhere to go. And there again, can't do anything about Pini having a bit of a high side. Say a bit of a high side. In terms of the rear end coming round on him, it wasn't the biggest for Pini, but a very quick part of the circuit as well. So Pini crashing right in front of Cruces. Cruces nowhere to go. Thankfully, they're both back up on their feet, but that's 3 riders down there at turn 7 in the opening 10 minutes.
Yeah, and as we
Udah
said
naik
about
ke
Keyless,
14
those
ya.
riders, they look okay and they're going to get back, but they've got to get their bikes back down. If the marshals are already busy there,
masih
they're
18
going to have
sih.
to wait a little while until someone else can come and get them. In terms of the vehicle recovery, that is what I'm talking about. This is the news about David Almanza, who will take no further part in Friday's session due to fever. We already covered that off right at the top of the show. The rider who is 3rd in this championship at the moment, missing all of Friday action here at the Sachsenring. So get well soon, David, and also to the other David in that team, David Munoz, if you're listening. But Jürgen Ling is going to be looking through the rider replacement list at this rate, because he's already got Marcus Uriarte on one of the bikes. Marcus Uriarte going really well at the moment, up in 4th place. Thankfully, we've got a summer break to come, so if it is an illness for Almanza that takes him out the weekend, surely he'll be okay.
Aduh,
You'd like to
jauh
think so,
banget
wouldn't you?
Veda.
The top 2
Veda
from
di
last time
18.
out over in Assen, currently not on circuit. Yellow flags again then at turn 3. Now turn 3, Kiko, so far this weekend has proved a pinch point. There's a little bit of a bump that didn't seem to be there last year. Caught out Marc Marquez, caught out Franco Morbidelli, caught out Celestino Vietti, caught out Hakim Denish this morning, and it's Scott Ogden now that looks like has been caught out. Well, not by that bump, to be honest, because that isn't the sort of section where we've seen the bump. Yeah, much earlier in the corner for Ogden, and that bike takes a little bit of a barrel roll as well.
That's the second crash of the day for Scott Ogden as well. So Skogger's down in the gravel again for the second time. Earlier on it was turn 13 where he took the front. This time it's turn 3. So Scott Ogden not having a lot of luck on Friday. More yellow flags at turn 3. I wonder if that's just because we got a rider walking through the gravel, or whether we have an all-new incident altogether. We'll await and see. Clear on the exit, so I think it's just because someone's getting that bike out of the way, and yellow flag has got in, so it looks like we're all good to go again. But a very, very dramatic opening 15 or so minutes here, El. We came off air earlier. Well, I came off air earlier, and when I caught up with you over lunch, I said it was a bit of a slow burner this morning. Well, we've had anything but this afternoon. It has been quite the opener to practice, and I remind you, this is a session that counts. This is the one that seeds them into Q1 or Q2, so a lot of crashes that are going to hurt a lot of riders, not physically, but in terms of their aspirations for pole and Q2 process.
Yeah, if you're just tuning in this weekend, watch out for that turn 3 on the exit, when the riders come back through a sort of second apex before they power it back up the hill towards turn 4 and 5, and then of course come down the hill through 6 and 7. The exit of turn 3 is a little bit of a bump that has caught out a few riders so far this weekend. Hasn't caught out anyone in this session so far. They would of course have known about it from FP1 and watching the Moto2 and MotoGP sessions as well. So obviously a little bit more aware of it than they were this morning. But do watch out for that when the riders are pushing in time attack mode, trying to fight for a bit of track position. Turn 3 has caught out a lot of riders so far this weekend across all classes.
Ryusei Yamanaka was up inside the top 5 earlier on today, just crossed the line, and he's in 16th place at the moment. He was 11th to 6th in the Sachsenring in 2024. His best qualifying there here was a 6th in 2022. So not tearing up trees, we say Yamanaka, but his top 6 form this morning has been normal here in recent years. It's just not quite getting him in that top 4, top 3 just yet.
Yeah, it's more like the Yamanaka we were used to seeing, and talking of seeing, absolutely, Kiko, that is good to see. Keyless coming back to the garage, walking not too gingerly as well. Obviously, it'll be a bit battered and bruised from that fast off. You can tell by the leathers. He's had a big one as Keyless. He's just joining us. Keyless turn 7. He goes down, thumbs up, which is good news. Caught his breath and looks all okay, which is great. Here's another replay of them. Shame we didn't get the sort of start of it, because clearly something happened through the mid-corner and on the exit for Keyless. Through the gravel. Didn't see the bike back in the garage though, Kiko, and we have we got a view of the Aspar garage and have from our commentary position, so I'll try and keep an eye out. I've got a bit of a view, but not a great one, so if we do see the bike rolling back at pit lane, if we don't get it on the TV screens, then we'll bring that to you. But yeah, a rebuild job on for the Aspar mechanics down there.
Yeah, shaken but not stirred just yet for Max Keyless. He'll be waiting to see if he can get out and go gangbusters right at the end of this to try and get himself up into the top 14. But for now, Brian Iriarte is leading the way ahead of Joel Kelso. Jesus Rios, your top Honda from Assen there in third place. Marcus Iriarte, super sub for David Munoz in fourth. Adrian Cruz says a crasher with Guido Pini is there in fifth place. Denise, your winner from Brno, sixth. Carpe fastest this morning in seventh. Salmela, eighth.
Sepeda masih 19 ya.
Rally, Esteban Vitali, O'Shea, Ogden, another crasher, and on your screen right now I can tell you he has not head-butted it. He did crash it at turn 3, and Adrian Fernandez, your 14,
turun lagi pela 20
at the moment. There is Scott Ogden, you can see him there communicating with the team, but not quite sure what he's gesticulating about just there, but they're going to need to change the front fairing on that one, El, because the bubble had burst.
Yeah, certainly so. And unfortunately for Ogden, as you rightly mentioned, second crash of today. Hopefully not another one coming for Ogden, because that's a fairly damaged motorcycle. No issues to get back out on circuit for the final 17, 15 minutes, or when we go into time attack mode in the last 10 minutes. Now I can see some Aspar mechanics running down pit lane. Does that mean Max Keeler's machine is about to re-enter the fray in terms of pit lane and be wheeled back up to the garage? There's a couple of mechanics jogging down pit lane, and I think the bike is about to be recovered, so it's taking its time. Kiko rightly mentioned it's the part of the circuit, A, that's really quick, you obviously don't want to crash at, and B, pretty much the furthest point you can get from the gravel. That's Guido Pini, and that is a rather second-hand looking Leopard Honda.
Yeah, it's not meant to look like that, I don't think. If you're just tuning in for the first time, it's not meant to have a load of scrape marks and dents and around the side of it. Stood up here in commentary, just trying to see whether or not we've got an Aspar machine going down pit lane. We've got a Leopard mechanic running up and down pit lane as well. So a lot of bikes have gone missing because of these crashes. Good to see Guido Pini was riding it back at least. Maybe not under its own steam, but at least moving its wheels in the right direction. So we await to see whether Guido Pini can get to that back or not. At the moment, nothing moving in front of our comms position. We do have a pretty ideal comms position this weekend because we are right in front of pit lane. Unfortunately, we can't see all 700 metres of it, but that's fairly standard. So Leopard mechanics have gone running down, so I wonder if that's the first one back by virtue that Guido Pini is riding it back out.
Yeah, exactly that. We'll keep you up to date if we see any bikes coming back into pit lane. Meanwhile, Brian Iriarte sits P1, and I was impressed with, well, I've been impressed with Iriarte for the last few Grand Prix. Of course, picked up that debut victory over at Mugello, backed that up with P2 over in Brno, in between the P4 over in Hungary as well, and was slightly disappointed, I think, with the P6. He had a couple of moments just defined his race. He had a couple of close calls, both hampered him slightly, and he feels, Iriarte, if he hadn't have lost a bit of time, he would have been right in that podium hunt, potentially victory hunt as well, because he was the fastest rider on circuit in the closing stages. But he's turned a real corner in the last few Grand Prix as Brian Iriarte. Knows he's got the pace now to, of course, win a Grand Prix, because he's already done it, and he's already stood on the podium after that as well. And P6 was his worst result actually in the last 4 Grand Prix, which is pretty good going for a rookie. So yeah, Iriarte is really on song, and after a bit of a troubled start to his season, not a bad one, but he didn't have the feeling he wanted in pre-season. That continued over into the season proper, but now Iriarte is feeling really comfortable on that KTM in his surroundings as well in the IO box, and is sounding like a really confident rider.
He is our most recent double champion in Red Bull Rookies and Moto Junior, as well as being a winner here at the Sachsenring last year in Red Bull Rookies from the front row of the grid. I can tell you, Guido Pini's bike has made it back down pit lane. The Leopard mechanics were running for a reason, and they have managed to get hold of the number 94 Leopard Honda. Guido Pini is in tow, but the mechanics are getting that bike back now. Pini and Cruces crashed at around 21.5 minutes left on the clock, I think. So that's taken them 6 minutes. We are yet to see the Max Keeler's number 28 machine back in yet. So judging by the fact that the Aspar team were originally running and then were probably told it's not their bike that's coming up, they're probably still waiting. We have to wait and see. That's the 94 of Guido Pini. Right, you can see the front of it absolutely smashed to pieces. Let's see what they can do. The Leopard guys are very, very experienced down there. Bruno Corricini in there, celebrating his 30th year of being in this paddock. The large chap with the grey hair on top. He has pretty much seen it all. Let's see if they can work some magic and get Guido Pini back out, because at the moment Guido Pini
Veda Pratama turun lagi 21
into Q2.
Yeah, Emilio Alzamora there as well by the side of Guido Pini. I'm sure plenty of you will know that Emilio Alzamora was the Marquez brothers' manager for numerous years.
Dikit lagi bontot
few
paling
years
belakang.
ago before they moved on to pastures new. Guido Pini clearly got pace, clearly got a lot of talent and a lot of speed. He's a Grand Prix winner in Moto3. But the one thing you would say about Pini is he's just hitting the deck a little bit too often. I make that 12 crashes now this season for Guido Pini. Only Cormac Buchanan, I think, has more than Pini so far this season. So while Pini has shown great promise on that Leopard Honda, it's not quite worked out in the last few Grand Prix after his debut victory over in Austin. Just needs to iron out these mistakes that have crept into his game in Moto3. Like I say, there's no doubt the Italian has bags of talent and is capable of winning Grand Prix and finishing on the podium on a regular basis. And on the front row here last year in Germany with the Intact GP team as well. Still getting used to the Honda, of course. That takes a little bit of time, as we've seen for numerous riders, including Joel Kelso, very experienced is Kelso, clearly lesser in this class, but
Masih
to
21 ya.
cut out some of these small mistakes. Crashes are always going to happen, it's part and parcel. But to hit 12 crashes in half a season is a little bit too much, you've got to say.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is that thankfully over the last few rounds there's not been too many of the big high sides that we were seeing quite a lot from Guido Pini last year. I think back to Mandalika when he had that absolutely enormous one, and I think he had one in Goiânia. Can't remember if it was Goiânia or Kota. He had a big one as well. So at least that high side was a rather gentle one. It laid him out the front door, and thankfully the bike was able to protect him from the incoming Adrian Cruces. Right, 20 riders are within 1 second here. It's tight at the Sachsenring. It's only 3.6 kilometres. 12.5 minutes or so left on this clock, so we are not too far away from going full time attack mode. Keso Gorman crossed the line here and he's in 18th place now. Keso Gorman struggled a little bit this morning, it's got to be said. He was only 19th. Unfortunately for O'Gorman, let's just talk about him if we can for a moment, Al. He has been very, very much up and down, and by up and down I genuinely mean points DNF, points DNF. That's been the pattern, and that is the pattern that is continuing into this weekend. Points last time out, so the sequence says a DNF this weekend. He'll be hoping that that is not what happened. Looking back at him in Red Bull Rookies at the Sachsenring, 25th on the grid in 2022, came through for 6th and 10th, so we know Keso Gorman on a Sunday will get his elbows out, but probably just needs to find a little bit of extra something in terms of A, his consistency, and B, today, his pace.
Yeah, for sure, consistency is what O'Gorman will be searching for.
Like all rookies.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very sort of rookie-esque season, let's say. Not all rookies enter the class as double champions like Brian Uriarte and are able to win Grand Prix. That isn't really the norm, and O'Gorman, to be fair to him, is stringing together a very impressive rookie campaign. It's got to be said. He was obviously in that front group when he crashed out over in Brno. It was a big crash as well, so he did well, actually, did the Irishman. Not absolutely 100% fit and get back into that top 10. Was happy with his pace as well, was the Irishman over at the Dutch Grand Prix, and has had 5 top 10s overall in 2026, which isn't bad going at all. It is, and has been a roller coaster season for sure, but one thing you will say about O'Gorman when he is on it and when he's not crashing, he's got real pace and real potential, easily inside that top 10. Very used to seeing O'Gorman inside that top 10, so yeah, he'll be hoping to, of course, get into the top 14 primarily in this session. Has only had one Q2 appearance automatically since Jerez, and that was a P6 on a Friday finish over in Hungary. So O'Gorman was wanting to get back into the top 14 on a Friday, but I have been impressed so far this season with the
Oh, he's been brilliant, hasn't he, at times? He has been absolutely brilliant. We knew that Kejuaraan would do this. And like we say, very, very exciting prospect for the future. We're in that lull at the moment, or we were. Everyone now just starting to head out on track. And it's Marco Morelli who is going to lead them out of the pits. Valentin Peroni needs a lap time here. He's down in 20th place. So a lot of work still to do for the Argentinian. I can tell you that half a second covers your top 11 and less than a second cover your top 20, and it's actually less than 8/10 as well. So 1.2 covering P1 to P22. Eduardo Gutierrez, of course, we can't really read and expect too much into him because it is his debut. He's 3.6 off Brian Uriarte at the very, very top. What Guido Pini has done there is turned that Honda into a jigsaw and left it for the mechanics and everyone to put it back together. But I'm not a mechanic, that's fairly obvious, that's why I'm up here. But even I can pretty much work out with 9 minutes on the clock, that needs a little bit more work.
Your eyesight's not great as well, so you've done well
even with glasses
to work that one out. No, that's
still scored more goals than you this year, though.
Guido Pini is not heading back out for this session. The mechanics clearly not in a rush to get that rebuild underway, and you can't really blame them either when there's that much of a job on. The last thing you want to do is rush things, potentially get them wrong under pressure. It's only Friday. Yes, Fridays are massively important now in Grand Prix motorcycle racing. Top 14 in Moto3 and Moto2 can make or break sometimes a weekend, and Pini will be heading through Q1. Last thing you want to do though is send him back out potentially with something still wrong on the motorcycle, causing danger to Pini and of course the other riders on circuit as well. Leopard, obviously a very experienced team, know that they're not going to get that bike fixed and repaired in the final 8 minutes, and neither is that one, unfortunately.
Look what's just rolled back through. The number 28 of Max Healer. Now that took 20 minutes out. That's taken 20 minutes. That's well worth noting in the future for any other crashes at that section of circuit. Moto2, MotoGP, of course, coming up straight after this Moto3 session. But 20 minutes to get that bike moved back from the outside of turn 7 all the way back to the Aspar box. So I think the Aspar box as well is quite far down pit lane, which means it's right far back up pit lane as well, because if they come in, they've got to come right back down the bottom and then back up again. So a long old time wasted there. Well, not wasted, taken. And unfortunately, a session wasted for Max Giles, because that is not going to get back out, I'm afraid, with 7.5 minutes to go. Okay, fast times incoming. It's a 25.959 for Joel Esteban, which is the fastest lap of the day so far, until Jesus Rios went and put a 25.904 in. So the number 54 off the back of his career best results in Grand Prix racing last time out a couple of weekends ago. The number 54 from Marbella, going very strong indeed. Esteban second, Cormac Buchanan's come up to third. Veda Pratama was only 23rd this morning, he's fourth. Uriarte's fifth. So we are in that session area, L, where it's hammered down.
Absolutely, yeah. Good to see Cormac Buchanan enjoying a better weekend at things. Was disappointed after crashing out of the Dutch Grand Prix. Did pick up the top 10 here last year, which was his last top 10 in Moto3. So good to see the New Zealander inside that top 3, looking really strong. Pratama back up there as well. We've sung the praises of Rios, and rightly so. He's been in a very rich vein of form in his rookie season as Jesus Rios. Good to see the River Gold Snipers team up there in P1. Will that stay though? Looks like it won't for long with Marco Morelli on a very, very good lap time.
And this isn't too bad from Yamanaka either. This should put him in the top 5 if he can hold it. Let's take the Japanese rider to the line. Oh, he lost a lot of time in that final sector. And I tell you what, that's just pushed out Carpe for the moment. Carpe's got a red sector going on through the first sector, but you don't want to be leaving yourself at the mercy of yellow flags potentially, or track limits. Pratama's gone top on the 25.8. Oh, talking of yellow flags, turn 13, that's the final corner. Who is it, I wonder? We will soon find out. Morelli has crossed the line to go fourth. That is, by my record, that is not surely Alvaro Carpe. Is that, looks like right? No, it can't be Ryan Uriarte. Is it Salmano or Peroni perhaps? I think it's Salmela. It is Salmela entering the pit. So we cycled through the
Danis
entirety
jauh
of
di
the
bawah
Red Bull
Veda
KTM
Merat.
box there. Yeah, we got there in the end.
Kesurupan, guys.
Number 27,
Langsung
Rico
keempat, guys.
Salmela. Now that is a real problem because he's come down pit lane. He'll give that bike a once over. It doesn't look too badly damaged. When you're in pit lane, you're not on a track, and he's down in 16th place. And judging by what's coming behind him, Eddie O'Shea, who has just gone up into the top 3 in 3rd, it just pushes him back further. So Rico Salmela is going to really need to push on with 5 minutes to go.
Good lap time from Carpe.
Bang mana dia hilang.
To
Woi,
P6,
pertama
but
coy.
even better one, as Kiki rightly
Pertama,
mentioned, from Eddie
anjing.
O'Shea, less than a tenth away from
Veda pertama,
Pratama
anjing.
at the top of the timesheets. Great from the Indonesian, who was a very
Pertama,
disappointed
coy.
figure at the end of the Dutch Grand Prix after crashing out. Yamanaka, a better lap time coming in, but still losing time in that final split is the Japanese rider. But P11 is good enough. But how long for?
Let's see, 4.5 minutes on the clock. Those who need a lap time at the moment, Adrian Fernandez.
Veda pertama ya.
Yeah, Adrian Fernandez, Valentin Peroni, Adrian Cruces. Let's see whether or not the number 11's bike is able to get back out there. Keso Gorman is down there in 21st place at the moment. The thing with Pini and Keele is almost guaranteed to be going through Q1. Oh, Eddie O'Shea has really found the edge of the racetrack limits there. Whoa, that would have caught his attention. Turn 8, he's going through the gravel at some speed. He's done very, very well to keep that wheels in line. I was just about to say, with the likes of Kinos and Pini all but guaranteed to go through Q1, this is a big land of opportunity, a big opportunity for someone to squeeze on through, perhaps maybe wouldn't normally.
Yeah, O'Gorman P21. We're used to seeing the 67 in Q2, albeit not on a Friday afternoon in recent races, but that so far is good enough. A good lap time from the Iceman, who had to pass Carpe as well, so would have lost potentially a little bit of time going into the final couple of corners. Good enough for now, but 4 tenths away. O'Gorman will be wanting more
Veda
to
masih di posisi
just
pertama
be
dia.
a little bit more safe. Yamanaka
Gadis
not going to
gila.
improve on this lap time around after setting a red
Gadis
first split. The
coy.
number 6 crosses the line, loses a little bit of time in that final split, but it wasn't going to be a personal best lap time anyway. Fernandez's lap time has gone in the second split. Fernandez needs a very strong final couple of splits to make up some time from 4 tenths. It doesn't look like he's pushing too much on this lap
Habis
time
ini ada
around,
Moto2
though.
ya.
Runs wide onto the green, so it doesn't matter anyway.
Ada Suryo
This lap time
Mario
will go
Aji.
away, but pressure
Tahu
on
deh.
then for Fernandez with one layer
Prestasinya
on
nggak
the
ada
rider
tuh.
not coming out for the final 10 minutes after a big crash. They don't want to see their second rider in terms of what we're talking about, Adrian Fernandez, not going through into Q2 directly.
Got to say as well, Valentin Peroni needs that lap time to really come in. It's all done as far as Kiles and Pini are concerned, because they're not getting back out, as we've said now, and that's almost guaranteed, really, with 2.5 minutes on the clock, regarding, disregarding wizardry in terms of Leopard. They haven't even bothered down at Max Kiles' box, because they're not going to be able to gain anything. So the next time we'll see Max Kiles is going to be on qualifying Saturday, and it's going to be an FP2 tomorrow, coming up at 8:40 local time. 2 minutes on the clock. Yamanaka's still going very strong in the opening 2 sectors, but losing a little bit in that 3rd sector. Big shout outs to Veda Pratama, Joel Esford and Eddie O'Shea. That's a heck of a top 3, I've got to say, with Jesus Rios in tow in 4th. Good laps done by Denise and Buchanan. Batali as well has got himself provisionally through up into the top 14. Brian Uriarte in 11th has been quick through this session, but he hasn't set that bank at that big attacking lap time later on in this session just yet, and I just wonder if he's coming at all. But the number 51 is there in 11th. Ogden has crashed, but is in there in 12th place. Kelso and O'Gorman completing it all at the moment. 90 seconds on the clock. We keep an eye on our timing screens and timing monitors up here in commentary, because this is when final lap times are being started. There are riders who are now on their final flying lap.
Yeah, not too much going on in terms of yellow and red sectors. Yamanaka set a
Semoga Veda
red split. Denise was on a
P1
personal best lap time, but the lap time has properly gone away. He's 10 seconds over through the second split, so Denise has either made a mistake or decided to sit up out of it. Batelli is on a personal best lap time in sector 1. And Batelli currently is inside the top 10, so he doesn't necessarily need to go quicker, and he's lost a lot of time in the second split as well. So with less than a minute to go, no one really is threatening to improve their time or take Pratama off top spot. Rammerstorfer, a personal best lap time, but he's and then 9 tenths away through the second split as well. So in terms of riders penetrating the top 14. Let's keep an eye on the number 88 of Uriarte, 3/10 away through the second split. So as things stand, Uriarte the only threat to Casey O'Gorman in P14.
Yeah, the only threat, but let's see what he does through the third sector. It's not a lot. He's great through that third sector. Eddie O'Shea has parked it, and it looks pretty safe from that side of the garage. Let's wait and see. Kelso gets away with it. We're waiting for Marcus Uriarte to come across the line. He's had to deal with Valentin Peroni. These guys
Sepeda
on their
masih
final
pertama ya, di bawahnya ada Esteban.
I tell you what, this is another disappointment for Valentin
Alvaro
Peroni.
Carpe di
Peroni has not
5,
improved. Marcus
Hakim
Uriarte
Danis.
hasn't either. Peroni is in Q1 once again here in
Hakim Danis
Moto3
masih
on a
ketujuh.
Saturday afternoon. Can you believe it? Well, actually, judging by recent form, yeah, you can. Valentin Peroni 17th at the flag. Fernandez has taken it as well, so no Leopard racing machines moving through. Rico Salmella in 19th place. I mean, that doesn't look too promising either. Absolutely. Well, hang on a minute. Rico Salmella might just be about to save Tech 3's day in Moto3. Lost a bit of time in that final, in that second sector. He's 3/10 off. O'Gorman's not improving, and he's the rider at risk should Salmella improve his final flying lap time. We're keeping an eye on the number 27 on our timing screens. 3.5 off through the second sector.
Oh, udah close ya.
Off through
Udah
the
close ini.
third sector. This is very much touch and go. He's going to need to do something pretty special in this final sector. Brian Uriarte is the one who's towing him around, but I don't think Salmella, unless he's going to do something majestic through the Quickenberg corner and all the way up this straight. Salmella, it might be a personal best. Does it sneaking him in? It does! And at the expense of Casey O'Gorman, who was looking to move through for the first time on a Friday since Hungary, Rico Salmella does it the hard way, and Tech 3 can breathe a sigh of relief as they do. Rico Salmella just about sneaking in there, the Finnish rider, knocking out fellow rookie and Irishman Casey O'Gorman there in 15th place. So O'Gorman, Uriarte, Fernandez and Valentin Peroni will join Max Quiles and Guido Pili. That is going to be a riot in Q1 tomorrow. No one could keep up with Veda Pratama. They were 25.848. It is the Indonesian who leads the way on a Friday afternoon.
And potentially David Almanza too in Q1 with his illness today.
That is a great spot, El.
Thank you. Yeah, Pratama though. Pratama though in P1, great job from the Indonesian to be top dog on a Friday. As I mentioned, was really disappointed with how his Dutch GP ended, so great for Pratama to respond, and really impressive that from Rico Salmella. Did think watching him, he chucked it into turn 13.
Yeah.
Got a bit of slipstream as well up the hill, which would have helped. Nailed that final split.
Iya, tercepat
Unfortunately,
coy.
on the receiving end of it.
Prestasi nih.
700 off the gap he was already at the third sector point, which is just at the top of this hill by the time he crossed it. So it was some last sector from Rico Salmella, probably one of the best ones of the session so far. So Rico Salmella doing what he needed to do and just about squeezing through. Who else can we have a little chat about here? Cormac McCannon. Let's have a chat about the number 14, a New Zealander. They're in 8th place. Great stuff from him. Also Joel Kelso. I know we're watching Australia, so great for the Antipodeans there. 8th and 13th and moving straight through into Q2. Massive sigh of relief for both.
Yeah, Buchanan's first automatic Q2 since
Nanti yang
Brazil
bilang
when he was
game
second
over.
on the opening
Parah
day
sih,
in Guyana. So yeah, good to see Buchanan up inside that top 10. Not the day Leopard Honda would have wanted. Adrian Fernandez walking back down pit lane, not quite sure why he's doing that, and he's not on his motorcycle, but he will be very disappointed.
He's probably walking about as far away from that box as possible, because I can't imagine the atmosphere is conducive to a very strong performance this weekend with both riders out in practice already. We'll have to wait and see exactly what they've got tomorrow. Adrian Fernandez does normally lay it on the line, it's got to be said, so we'll have to wait and see if he can move through. But I'll tell you what, out of all those tomorrow, I'm not sure who is moving through, because that's going to be tight. Particularly if you throw in Almanza, should he be fighting fifth?
Yeah, exactly. We'll wait and see if Almanza is on circuit, but that is a pretty stacked Q1. There's always plenty of riders who are quick enough to come through Q1, but you've got the championship leader, got Valentin Peroni, who was P4 last time out as well, Adrian Fernandez. So yeah, looking forward to that one tomorrow.
Can't wait. Veda Pratama it is, though, who leads the way. The Indonesian bouncing back from his Assen disappointment. Two top Friday running here in Germany. Joel Esteban second, and Britain's Eddie O'Shea up there in third. Jesus Rios, fourth place for him. 3 Hondas up inside the top 4. Alvaro Carpe, fifth and straight into Q2, unlike championship leader Max Keeles, who will have to go through Q1. If you are just joining us a bit late, a big crash for Keeles. He's all okay. They couldn't get the bike fixed. That was over at turn 7. They lost most of their session waiting for the bike to return. He is going to be spitting feathers about that. As you can see, Almanza and Keeles, who are our top 2 on Sunday at Assen, are bottom 2 with no time set on Friday in Germany. And that brings to an end Moto3. Moto2 is coming up in the company of Lewis and Elle. Enjoy!
Afternoon, everybody, from the Sachsenring. Well, Moto3 certainly produced a shock or two, didn't it, in that practice session completed moments ago. Let's see if Moto2 can live up to that as we continue along our Friday action. As Moto3 and Moto2 paddocks begin to swap places. Rather unique setup we have here at the Sachsenring. We're in the commentary boxes just over to the right-hand side as you were looking, which is where the Moto2 and Moto3 kit is set up. So they all make their way over, either on foot or if you're World Championship leader Manu Gonzalez coolly on a scooter over into pit lane to get themselves set up for this Moto2 practice session. With 40 minutes coming up to decide who moves through automatically to the qualified 2 and who faces an extra 15 minutes work tomorrow afternoon if they are to fight for pole position. And on a day when already the World Championship leader and the right third in the points in Moto3 are Q1 banned, is Moto2 set to spring a surprise of its own. Let's now going to get a surprise from the weather. Pristine, beautiful, sunny conditions, comfortable temperatures. Certainly if you, like myself and Elliot York in the commentary box, live in Barcelona and are used to temperatures in excess of the 30s. We've got rather comfortable mid-20s. Running, but no threat of any rain, so we are set there for dry practice in Moto2, dry MotoGP practice, their 1 hour session to decide the 10 that go through to Q2 is just over an hour away. Marc Marquez goes for a 10th Sachsenring victory in the MotoGP class, a 13th in all classes this weekend, to really breathe some additional life into his World Championship defense. As far as Moto2 are concerned, well, Manu Gonzalez leads the points, 57.5 is his advantage. Manu Gonzalez riding for the home-based Intact GP squad this weekend. He and Senna Aegis inside the top 3 this morning, along with this man, Tony Arbolino, who ended the morning in 2nd place. It's Lewis and Elliot York, as mentioned, with you for this afternoon's practice session, and after the Moto3 session that's just concluded out, Moto2 have got quite a lot to follow. Yeah, they absolutely have. Good afternoon, mate. Hello to everyone just tuning in to Moto2 practice. Yeah, hopefully we don't see the same sorts of crashes we saw in Moto3. 3 fast ones down at turn 7 and not nice to view at all. But when you're a neutral, a little bit of championship drama never goes amiss. Thankfully, well, at least Pini and Keeles were all okay. Not seeing Cruces, but he was back up on his feet. But no more turn 7 crashes would be nice. I'm sure these guys would have seen that as well. Maybe just taking it a little bit cautiously through the left-handers of 7. A very quick place to go down. Very quick this morning, as Lewis rightly mentioned. P3 for Senna Aegis, just behind Tony Arbolino and championship leader Manu Gonzalez. More of the same for the Intact GDP squad. This afternoon will go down just nicely at their home Grand Prix. Not have the best of time things in Moto3, with David Almanza suffering with fever and illness this weekend, and David Munoz, of course,
kita balapan dulu sambil nunggu ya. Jam lagi nih.
Having a pretty decent time.
Jam lagi MotoGP ya, Moto2 masa ditonton lah ya, burik.
Shape of things to come is
Nggak ada prestasi tuh si Omnya. Mario Hajinya nggak ada prestasi.
Down at Speed RS. Vietti did in the morning 4th earlier on today, but did crash at the Omega corner. So Vietti has already had one blot on the copybook after crashing out and ending his 100% point scoring record with his early fall in the Dutch Grand Prix at Assen. He was the top Bosca scorer this morning, with 3 of them inside the top 6. Next of them was Ethan Cavara here in 5th place, and looks pretty consistent, as to be said. The deeper we've looked into the analysis of this morning's FP1 session, Guevara looks in pretty good shape and already would appear to be a much likelier contender at the front than he was in Assen.
Yeah, exactly that. Said over in Assen on Friday, he had zero feeling whatsoever on that Boston-School rope. Of course, ended with a P4 on Sunday, so a good salvage job and a good recovery job done from Guevara and the Blue Crew Pramac Yamaha Moto2 squad across the weekend at the Cathedral. And it was nice to see Dennis Onchu up inside that top 6 this morning, and Boston-School rose in P4, P5 and P6. The Turk back up somewhat towards the front at the scene of his last Grand Prix victory here last year, of course, when he was riding for Red Bull KTM Io, when he was battling Barry Bautus for the win, who was, of course, currently still sidelined. We wish Barry Bautus very well indeed, and on a difficult weekend for, of course, the Mark VDS Racing team. It was great to see Unchu looking somewhat of himself. He was pushing hard, had a fair few moments, did Dennis this morning, but that's what we like to see. He's an all-action rider, and fingers crossed that's the sort of tone we can hope to see for the rest of the weekend for the number 53.
For a Mark VDS team in somber mood this weekend. If you weren't with us this morning and haven't been following the off-track news, the founder of the Mark VDS team, Mark van der Straten, sadly passing away last weekend at the age of 78. That's why we have the black numbers and the somber tone for Mark VDS this weekend. There was a minute's applause on the start-finish straight in tribute for him yesterday afternoon. And if, not that we're biased in the commentary box, we are very much neutral, but if there's one team who I think we could say deserve a bit of good news this weekend and something to smile about, it is Mark VDS. He's Ivan Ortola, who's on a good recent form, isn't he? Of course, victory in Brno, which he backed up with 5th place from 15th on the grid last time out in Assen. I mean, it's just as well he's very good on first laps, because he's often qualifying lower down the field than he should. Ortola already in the first half of the season on lap 1 alone. This is Ortola went from 14th to 4th at Le Mans before converting that at the end to a podium. He went from 10th to 4th in Mugello before running as high as 2nd, 5th to 2nd at the start in Brno before and ultimately winning the race via a long lap penalty. And on lap 1 in Assen, he went from 15th up to 8th on the grid. Bad news for Ortola is the grids are spaced out a little further this time, so he might find it a little more difficult to make that early progress.
Yeah, I heard Jorge Martin speaking about this yesterday, and qualifying across the classes as Pedro Acosta gives us a nice little wave. Of course, Pedro, a very close friend to Alistair Screech in Moto2. Screech stringing together a very impressive season on that Ford Sashi in the Clint Racing team. But yes, a little bit of a change this weekend with the grids being a little bit more spaced out. So qualifying, as it always has been, is crucial. Now it's even more crucial with an extra 3 metres in between the grid slots. So yeah, the riders will be putting a lot more emphasis on qualifying, if they even could do that. They always put 100% emphasis on qualifying when it comes to it, but it becomes even more crucial. So any little mistake, half a tenth here and there, is going to cost you more than it used to.
David Alonso will not necessarily have those same fears if his recent qualifying record is anything to go by. At least back-to-back pole positions for David Alonso in the last 2 Grand Prix coming into the Sachsenring. Of course, it should have been 3 poles for the season, but for reasons that we've covered at length, he didn't keep the pole position that he took in Austin, Texas. He's becoming an ever-growing presence in this Moto2 Championship battle. Of course, could end this weekend 2nd in the World Championship, Alonso, which is
Jangan lupa
an extraordinary thing to consider, given that he didn't finish on the podium for the first time Grand Prix of the season. Alonso has said for so long in his Moto2 career, where I'm weakest is on a brand new tyre. I just can't extract the maximum performance from a brand new soft rear tyre, and it's evident through his recent qualifying performances that that is no longer the case for David Alonso. So he's now a Moto2 rider with little, if not no, weaknesses as an intermediate class rider, which could spell trouble. We'll sort of go through and have a little look back on the first half of the season as we go through this practice session, but the trajectory of David Alonso looks like it could take him into a late season title search.
Yeah, that's what he'll be hoping. The team will be as well. It does feel like we were sort of asking the question, weren't we, for plenty of races. It was 9 Grand Prix before the Czech Grand Prix where Alonso didn't finish on the podium. Now he's backed that P2 up with a victory at what he says was his worst circuit on the calendar at the Cathedral of Speeds. So that bodes well for Alonso for the rest of the season, but he is 69.5 points down on Manu Gonzalez. Great to see Mario Aggi back, of course, after missing a couple of Grand Prix through injury. Jacob Ralston standing in and doing a very decent job as well, did the young Australian, but great to see the Indonesian on the number 64 plate back just before summer break. So important for Aggi to get a weekend under his belt, get back up to speed, then go home, of course, train over the 3 weekends off we've got coming up before we hit Silverstone for the British Grand Prix in early August. But good to see Aggi recovering well from his latest surgery.
Well, the Calvin Harris hit Summer is currently being played over the circuit speakers here in the Sachsenring. Summer break is just a couple of days away now for the MotoGP, Moto2, Moto3 riders. It has been a relentless run of races over the last couple of months or so. We've had 3 consecutive pairs of back-to-back races before this solitary German Grand Prix. So that's what, 7 Grand Prix in 10 weekends, taking us into the summer break. The next time we will go racing after this weekend will be the British Grand Prix at Silverstone on the second weekend of August. We know for a fact Manu Gonzalez will head in as the World Championship leader, but what kind of advantage will he have, and who will be his likeliest championship challengers when we head into the second half of the season? 40 minutes of practice are underway as we're on board with David Alonso, 6th different winner of the 2026 Moto2 season. It's a season where we've had 6 different winners, 10 different riders have finished on the podium now, 8 different pole sitters from 10 Grand Prix. Only Ethan Guevara and David Alonso have been on pole more than once, 2 apiece. 13 riders have led a racing lap this season in Moto2. 5 different leaders last time out at the Dutch Grand Prix. So in the Pirelli era, as we look at Danny Munoz's bike, a reminder that he is absent through injury this weekend. He broke his foot and also damaged his humerus bone in his crash early on in the Dutch Grand Prix at Assen. Ever since Pirelli have come into Moto2, unpredictability has been the watchword in Moto2. It's been unpredictable again in 2026 with one constant, and that's Manu Gonzalez.
Exactly that, as you rightly mentioned, 6 winners in the opening 10 Grand Prix. Would have absolutely snapped your hand off for that, wouldn't we, as neutrals and fans coming into the Moto2 campaign. But if you were going to say that with 10 different podium finishes as well, you wouldn't have expected the championship leader to be nearly 60 points clear of the chasing pack. And it's, kudos to Gonzalez for stringing together such a consistent run of form. His worst finish has been a P5. He's done that on a couple of occasions over in Austin and then over at the Czech Grand Prix when he obviously got that grid penalty and started from P13 to come over line to finish in P5. And again, over at the Dutch Grand Prix, said it was a circuit that, despite he podiumed at last year, isn't a circuit that particularly he's normally that fast at, and he nearly won the Grand Prix. Of course, Alonso saying exactly the same thing, but the first half of the season, I don't think even Gonzalez, who's obviously backs himself to the hills and got a lot of confidence, would have said that he'd be nearly 60 points clear, and he might probably backed himself to win 4 races, of course, but it's been so consistent, not at the DNF, not finished outside the top 5, on the podium 8 times out of 10, doesn't get much better than that for Gonzalez, and that is why he's 57.5 points clear of Ethan Guevara, 62.5 clear of Senna Regis, who's won a couple of races himself, of course, and 69.5 points clear of David Alonso. And it's going to take some catching. It can change very quickly, of course, including starting this weekend. So I think what Gonzalez will be hoping for is to get another podium under his belt. If he can win, fantastic, as we get an early crash, and that's again at turn 3, a real pinch point so far this weekend. A little bit of a bump on the exit, and it's Zurutuza who has fell foul then down at turn 3. We've seen that across all classes, Moto3, Moto2 and in MotoGP, of course. If you haven't tuned in, Marc Marquez was a crasher at this very spot earlier on in FP1.
Yeah, saw a flash of blue and wondered whether it was Aspar or forward. It was forward. The all-time lap record has already gone, by the way, in this practice session. It's gone to Ethan Guevara, a 1:22.260. That is already about a half a tenth quicker than Celestino Vietti's lap record, which was set last year in practice. Ortola in second place has also gone under the lap record. He's on a 22.296. So already the pace is red hot here at the Sachsenring. turning to the sort of story of the season so far, of course, it might sound daft to talk about the first race of the season being a key turning point or a key moment, a key milestone in the season, but in the context of what happened in the second half of last year to Manu Gonzalez, to lose the World Championship in the way that he did, to have that real drop-off in the second half of the season, didn't win again after the Italian Grand Prix at Mugello. It would have been very easy, as Dennis Onchu is doing what Dennis Onchu generally does, and go full on the attack up the inside of Jorge Navarro into the first corner. Onchu currently 7th. It would have been so easy for that hangover of last season to carry on into this season for Manu Gonzalez. So how important was it, even in a 7-lap race, in a sprint essentially, a battle with Ethan Cavara that he only got half points for, or just how big a moment was that for Manu Gonzalez to just banish what happened in the second half of last year into the pages of history?
Yeah, huge. I think the big question on everyone's lips surrounding Manu Gonzalez coming into 2026, after losing the championship in the manner that he did to Diogo Moreira, after missing out on a MotoGP jump as well, after having a very positive test over in Aragon, was how could he answer a lot of questions and a lot of doubts that, you know, people from around the world within the paddock were asking of Manu Gonzalez, and to win straight off the bat in Thailand, looking really good as well, and not feeling actually as comfortable as he did last season. Didn't have quite that perfect feeling that he did in 2025 than he did at the start of 2026. I think he has now found that, Gonzalez, but I think massive for him to win over in Thailand, stick the middle finger up basically at a lot of his doubters, and maybe sail to him, sort of tell himself, all right, yeah, I can still win races. I lost the championship in very disappointing fashion last season. We mentioned turn 7, caught out a couple of riders, 3 riders in Moto3. Alberto Ferrandez nearly got caught out there as turn 7 as well. Big moment there for the Assen front row setter.
And early leader, wasn't he, of course? First time he's led a Moto2 Grand Prix, Alberto Ferrandez. We'll come on to him a little bit later when we chat about the rookies of 2026 so far. Gonzalez then, with those 12.5 points, was your early leader. Daniel Holgado took the World Championship lead away from him by winning in Brazil, but Gonzalez has led the World Championship since the United States Grand Prix, when Holgado had an absolute shocker with that collision at the start with Joe Roberts. Ethan Cavara has been the nearest challenger to Gonzalez since he won at Le Mans. He has been second in the World Championship since that point. He was also, of course, second in the championship after his P2 at the opening round in Buriram, and he's been a real breakout story, hasn't he, of 2026 Cavara so far, winning the final round of last year in Valencia. And we talked about Gonzalez needing to turn over a sort of a new page coming to this season, but Cavara has carried that momentum he ended last season with, and has become an established frontrunner in Moto2.
Yeah, 100%, and one that is not official yet, but absolutely fully expecting it to be. Cavara moving up to MotoGP in 2027, and it's that form you've got to feel. Yes, he's in the right team to do that, with Yamaha backing the Pramac team in Moto2, of course, but it's a run of form that's got him a GP seat, and to be fair, it's not been a flash in the pan. We say how important the opening Grand Prix win for Gonzalez was this year, and how big was it for Cavara to win the last Grand Prix of 2025, to go into the winter with a Grand Prix win under your belt in Moto2 after pretty much everyone began to doubt Cavara. The way he rose through the road to MotoGP, becoming a Moto3 world champion, it just didn't click for a couple of seasons for Cavara in Moto2. I think rightly so. A lot of people,
Selamat dong buat
including us in
Veda,
the media
posisi
centre, a lot of people in the
pertama
paddock as
dong,
well,
jadi
were wondering what is
praktis.
going on with Cavara. We know he's got the talent and the speed, shown that through the junior GP programmes and of course in Moto3. Just didn't feel like it was ever going to come. Thankfully for Cavara, thankfully for the Pramac team, and maybe Yamaha in the future when he hops onto a MotoGP seat, that it has come. And the fair play to Cavara for silencing the critics. And okay, the last 4 Grand Prix haven't quite gone the way he would have wanted it to go. No podiums in the last 4, and he's lost crucial ground to Gonzalez in the title fight. But you're right to say Cavara has been one of the stories of the season so far. Just needs to return to the podium. Returning to the circuit ASAP will be Milan Pavelec. What's happened here? Yeah, just going into turn 10, getting that slightly wrong, and into the gravel. The current Moto2 European Championship leader goes. So a couple of big moments already in this Moto2 session.
Pavelec is currently at the back of the field at the moment in 26th position, as right on board with the World Championship leader. This was the corner We're coming up to now the end of the lap, the final couple of bends at the bottom of that steep hill that Pavelec was trying to negotiate his way down. Gonzalez currently outside the top 14 at the moment, but I don't think he'll be panicking at this stage on that. Gonzalez really wrestling control of the World Championship away following that Guevara victory at the French Grand Prix. Gonzalez winning 3 consecutive Grand Prix in Barcelona, Mugello and in Balaton Park. And I think if you ask Manu Gonzalez which victory so far this season, because we're only at the halfway stage, a sort of half-term report on the season go so far, which victory does Manu Gonzalez treasure the most? Well, I think it was obvious, wasn't it? The tears that came out of his eyes when he won in Barcelona.
Absolutely, yeah. The Barcelona one was the first time really you'd seen sort of in Parc Fermé, in front of the cameras, proper bit of emotion from Gonzalez. Such a cool character, keeps his emotions under control when he's off the bike. When we've interviewed him in the past, both spoken to him quite a lot, he's gives you great answers, very articulate, but never really gets too carried away or too angry when things haven't quite gone right. But you could just tell that meant a lot to Gonzalez. It was around the time, of course, when contracts will have been signed in MotoGP. We're still waiting to hear if Gonzalez is going to get promoted next year. But talk about the middle finger for Guevara for a lot of people. I think I mentioned it for Gonzalez as well. That was, again, another sign of the emotions releasing, because he's gone out and proven on home turf that I'm currently the best rider in this class, I'm currently the rider to beat. Why is no one picking me for MotoGP? That's how it came across, and you could tell when he answered a few questions about it afterwards that was part of Gonzalez saying, I'm here, I'm winning races, why does no one believe in me, sort of thing. And of course, after that, he went to win in Mugello, then went to win in Balaton Park as well, and has since stood on the podium in Assen too. But yeah, clearly that win in Barcelona meant a lot to Gonzalez. Any win does, but you feel that was the point where emotions, understandably so, not got the better of him, because that sounds like we're talking about it in a negative way. It's great to see riders take off the helmet and show a bit of emotion, because they work so hard to do what they do and to try and realise the dream of getting into MotoGP. And when a rider is doing every single thing they can, leading the Moto2 Championship, another moment on the exit of turn 3, Senna just doing well to avoid the out-of-shape Jorge Navarro, of course Gonzalez's teammate, and it is exactly there on the exit of turn 3 where there's a little bit of a bump, and riders throughout the classes have been getting out of shape.
Yeah, Hakim Danish went down there in Moto3 this morning. We've seen Chancellor Vietti go down, Marc Marquez, who anything that he's forgotten around this circuit, or anything he doesn't know, isn't worth knowing, quite frankly. Given that he has a dozen victories in all classes around here, he's also gone down there so far today. So it's no shame in making that mistake, but fortunately from Navarro's point of view, he scooped that all up. He's in for the injured Barry Baltus, to remind you, here this weekend. As we saw before the session got underway, no Danny Munoz this weekend, so just one Italtrans entrance. That, of course, is Adrian Puertas. In terms of Gonzalez, what has the big step been? Or is he just perhaps... Is it a mental change for Manu Gonzalez? Because if you look at the first half of last season, you'd argue that Manu Gonzalez has done very similar first half of the campaign. It was the second half of last year where Gonzalez's title challenge began to drop away, and of course there was a serious challenge that came in from Diogo Moreira. But is the big change for Manu Gonzalez a mental one?
It seems so. Speaking to Jürgen Ling, the team boss, on a few occasions, both on air and off air, he does mention that there has been a mentality switch for Gonzalez. Last year, obviously, was winning races and topping the championship for a lot of the season, but Gonzalez would be adamant of trying to finish P1 in every single session. When he wasn't finishing P1 in a session, Gonzalez would not be pleased. That mindset has changed this season to just getting on with business. If you're not topping a session, whether it be FP1 or qualifying, don't get too disheartened. Things aren't going to go right all of the time. And of course, with what unfolded in the second half of last season, Gonzalez would have stepped back at the end of the season, assessed where things went wrong, and would have learned a lot from it. You obviously learn more from mistakes than you do from your success. That's part of life, and obviously Gonzalez has done exactly that, gone into the winter, hit the reset button, and it's clearly worked. But a big mindset change has happened, speaking to Manu himself and Jürgen Ling, and he's got a great team around him as well, as Gonzalez. So the team also, not just Gonzalez, would have learnt a lot from just what went a little bit wrong to cost in the championship last season.
One thing for certain, as we're going to the summer break, is Manu Gonzalez will not be counting any chickens at this stage. When he went into the summer break last year, which was after the Czech Grand Prix at Brno, he had a 60-point lead over the eventual champion, Diogo Moreira. Manu Gonzalez currently leads Ethan Cavara, his nearest rival, by 57.5. So Gonzalez will look to keep the pressure on this weekend, and of course it'll be a weekend where the Intact team are highly motivated to succeed their home Grand Prix. Of course, they'll be after another double podium that they got in Assen, but they'll hope that at least one of their two riders is at least standing on the top step. In terms of some of the breakout stars we've had in this Moto2 season so far, here is one of them, Philip Salac. We'll come to him in a moment, but the rider third in the World Championship, who we didn't have much chance to touch upon this morning, Senna Agius, who pushed so hard to fight for victory. It looked with 3 or 4 laps to go that he was going to take victory at Assen. The rate that he caught the top two, but as he said to Jackie Parkman, he used up all of his bullets to catch them and had no ammunition left by the time he did get up to the top two. Agius, I guess the gaps between his good and bad weekends have been far too big, but as he proved in the early spring, when he's been on it, he's been unbeatable. Exactly that, yeah, in Jerez of all places as well. Obviously in the USA, he took his first victory of the season. Obviously picking up the no scores in Thailand and Brazil through no fault of his own, really. Was caught with a technical issue, wasn't he, over in Thailand when he qualified on pole position. Then of course the team had circumstances, very sad circumstances, happen away from the circuit ahead of the Brazilian Grand Prix. So a mixed start to the season for Agius, who then responded superbly over in the United States. Of course, that was back-to-back with Brazil. So to go from Brazil to not scoring points and not looking at himself at all, and understandably so with everything going on away from the circuit within the team, to bounce back in Austin with a victory and then back that up over in Jerez, the circuit, as we know, everyone knows like the back of their hands. If you're winning in Jerez against these sorts of riders, you are a rapid rider, and that is exactly what Agius is, of course. And there's a bit of a lull in Le Mans and Barcelona, picking up a P7 and a P10, but in the last 4 Grand Prix, he's gone P4, P3, P4, P3, and I know he was quite annoyed, let's say, over in Mugello when he didn't finish on the podium. Straight line speed is where Agius basically is lost out, and it's through no fault of his own as well. He's obviously quite a tall rider, but he said he's exiting corners as well as he has done in his Moto2 career. He's as light as he ever has done. Obviously diet is absolutely spot on in terms of what he's needing to eat, his training of course, and you can tell from what he's saying, Agius, he is so uber focused this season. Said it again after the Dutch Grand Prix as well, on winning races and challenging for this title. If a MotoGP comes in the future, obviously that is his aim. He's doing everything he can to try and do that, but his main focus is on trying to win this Moto2 championship, and Agius is a reformed character this season. Knows that he's got the bike underneath him, the team around him and the talent to challenge for this championship, and he's proved that to be the case as well with a couple of victories so far this season. Been really impressed with Agius. He won't like the points gap to Gonzalez. Gonzalez, to be fair to him, has just been so consistent that, as we know, at this stage no one is able to keep too close tabs on him, but Agius is certainly a massive player in this championship chase and is right there. If Gonzalez, a mistake will come at some point from Gonzalez, that's the game we're in. Gonzalez is not going to go through all this season finishing with the worst place of P5. A DNF at some point, whether it's his fault or not, will come for Gonzalez. Agius has to be there to pick up the pieces and pick up the points when Gonzalez doesn't, and in the last 4 Grand Prix, Agius has returned to being a really consistent rider at the front. Could potentially have some wet weather as well in the second half of the season, which Manu Gonzalez won't thank me for saying hasn't necessarily been his forte so far in Moto2, although I'm sure he's working hard to rectify that. Yeah, so in terms of sort of the breakout stars, some of the newer names at the sharp end of Moto2 this season. Agius not a completely new name, because of course he did take a couple of wins last year. We've had Ivan Otola, of course, very recently take his first Moto2 victory, but certainly one of the stories of the season so far that I've enjoyed, particularly in the sort of second quarter of the season, if you like, from sort of the start of the European run up to now, has been Filip Salac, who's 8th in the World Championship, up inside the top 10. He's already secured for next season with the American racing team. And the whole Czech Grand Prix weekend at Brno and his pursuit of a first victory and support he received there is certainly one of my abiding memories of the first half of the season so far.
Yeah, 100% loved that from Filip Salac. And the Czech fans, always nice when you go to places like Brno. I mentioned it as well, Malaysia, Indonesia, when you know there's one or two riders on the grid who are the absolute home heroes. Of course, Salac's the only Czech rider on this grid. Saw so many Czech banners, Filip Salac's banners as well, and for a rider to realise their dreams standing on the podium at the home Grand Prix, it's such an iconic venue as well, that is the Autodrome Brno. Phenomenal from Salac, and just you know, it's great to see riders who haven't had the easiest time of things. As we know, motorcycle racing, being a full-time athlete, isn't all roses. It's not all you know, what it's made out to be away from the circuit, as Salac sort of opened up about. Really tough to sort of deal with things mentally away from the cameras. You can put on a brave face, but we don't know, of course, what really unfolds away from social media and away from the cameras in between Grand Prix. And it's obviously been a tough time of things for Salac for the most part of his Moto2 career. So for him to land in a team, to gel with his teammates straight away, they went over to California. Joe Roberts, of course, who I'm speaking out to train, and just settled in really brilliantly in the OnlyFans American Racing setup as Salac. And you felt like that podium was coming. Qualified on the front row over in Mugello, finished inside that top 5 after a P7 over in Barcelona, was on the front row, of course, over in Le Mans as well. And if it weren't for that sort of mistake at the opening chicane, I think it was in Le Mans, where he lost a lot of ground, it could have been a podium at Le Mans as well for Salac, but of course that didn't unfold that way. So for Salac to get a P2 in Hungary, to be really Gonzalez's only challenger at Balaton Park, and then of course to back that up with a phenomenal P3 at your home Grand Prix, has been a sort of feel-good story, I think, to this season.
The immediate challenge for Manu Gonzalez is to try and get himself into Q2. As it stands, he is not heading there. He's 17th at the moment, 1.1 seconds off the pace of his nearest championship rival, Ifan Guevara. Here is Salac, who's plunging downhill towards the Saxon curve, turn 12. Salac, as you can see on screens, is currently 4th. From a positive sense, he would be perhaps one of the surprises of the season. Not to whisper it quietly, but if we're looking for a slightly more negative surprise of the season, is it still Aspar? I mean, a victory apiece for David Alonso last time out in Assen, and Danny Holgado back at the second round of the season in Brazil. But so many were, I think we were potentially among them, were saying that the two favourites for the World Championship at the start of the season were David Alonso and Danny Holgado, and at this stage of the season, even with a victory apiece, neither are within 69 points of Manu Gonzalez, as there have clearly been high points, there have clearly been flashes of the clear potential, and David Alonso in particular has been unlucky at times, but surely their expectations would have been to be closer to the championship lead than that.
I mean, let's be honest, yes, it has been disappointing. If you're looking at their overall picture, when you say 69.5 points for Alonso and 90.5 points for Holgado, yes, they've both run a race this season which we were fully expecting. Holgado with 3 podiums, Alonso with 2. When you're looking at it from the first half of the season compared to what we expected coming into this season after what they produced last season, I've got to say, unfortunately, it has been a disappointing opening half of the season. Now, of course, Alonso has picked up that P2 over in Brno, a brilliant victory last time out over in Assen a couple of weekends ago as well. So if he has another podium this weekend, Alonso P3 in this session currently, so looking strong early on in this weekend, then you know you could maybe switch Alonso's, calling it a slight disappointment, into, you know, I'm going to say bang average, but even that sounds a bit harsh. But you
par,
know,
maybe,
yeah,
for Alonso.
Par for the course for sure. Opening half of the season, but you know, coming into the Sachsenring round 11, not many people would have been expecting Gonzalez to be 69.5 points clear of David Alonso and 90.5 clear of Danny Holgado. Now Holgado has got what we wanted. He's got a seat in MotoGP for 2027. and Alonso we're fully expecting to be moving up as well. That confirmation is going to come in the next couple of weeks. But so far, if we're being a little bit harsh, which sometimes we need to be, you have got to say it has been slightly under par from that spot.
Yep, still plenty of time in this season for both David Alonso and Dani Holgado to turn their campaigns around and still fight for the World Championship. They were looking to draw inspiration from Diogo Moreira in his second half of 2025, which propelled him to the World Championship. Before we can return to the here and now and this session, as we head into the business end, 15 minutes of this practice session to go, with Guevara leading Ortola, Alonso and Selamat. A quick reference, a quick mention to the rookies in Moto2 this season. 5 rookies have scored points so far in this 2026 season, and they've all kind of had their moments, haven't they? If we look at them individually, Jose Antonio Rueda, of course, started very much with a handicap after the injury that he carried into the season, but he's improved to be the leading rookie at the halfway stage of the season. Alberto Ferrandez, of course, not coming through the traditional Moto3 route, but he led last weekend, or the last Grand Prix in Assen. Luca Lanetta, we've seen him up in the top 10 back in Barcelona. Forasato has recently scored points, and Angel Piqueras has arguably been the fastest of the rookies, but has been the least lucky with injury. Of course, that broken femur that he sustained back in Austin. And of course, we have to consider all 5 of them in the context of just how insanely difficult it is to move from Moto3 or the European Moto2 Championship into Moto2 World Championship. And I think we've seen enough from all 5 of those names to suggest that the longer they're in Moto2, they're going to have some serious high points. Yeah, absolutely agree. The jump from Moto3 to Moto2 is bigger than the jump from Moto2 to MotoGP. That's not me saying that, that's Marc Marquez saying that is the case. And some haven't had their luck with injuries, and Angel Piqueras for sure. Luca Lanetta, of course, picking up an injury in the opening Grand Prix of the season as well. Jose Antonio Rueda, we know what happened to him at the end of last season, so this start to his Moto2 career was never going to be easy, but Rueda has picked up the pace and started to look a real threat in Moto2 in the last few Grand Prix. And of course Forasato as well, picking up a couple of points places in the last 3 Grand Prix as well. And you're right to point out Alberto Ferrandez. I don't think any expectations were on the shoulders of Alberto Ferrandez coming into this season. A relatively unknown quantity, I think it's fair to say, for Ferrandez, especially compared to the other rookies coming into the class. But fair play to Ferrandez. I think he silenced a fair few critics, sticking it on the front row, of course, last time out, leading a Grand Prix for the first time, as Lewis rightly mentioned. Oh, that's how it's spelled. Lewis rightly mentioned as well. So I think you're absolutely spot on when you say they've all had individual moments where they've caught the attention. I do think overall pace, from what we've seen so far this season, Piqueras has been the one who I think hit the ground running strongest. But obviously that injury, a big one as well, has hampered him leading into the summer. But I think all of them very excited to see what they can do in the second half of the season. They'll all go away, obviously not been all positive in the opening half of the season, but it was never going to be for a rookie joining a class for the first time. But they've all shown plenty of promise, which is really exciting for the second half of the campaign and the rest of the season, and of course then going into their sophomore years in 2027 as well. Yeah, I think they're all going to be riders to watch in 2027, with what's likely to be a bit of a clear out at the top end of the World Championship in Moto2 for next season. We're expecting 4 of the top 6 in the World Championship at the moment to move up to MotoGP next season. Holgado, we know, is confirmed. Alonso and Guevara likely to be confirmed in the near future, and one of Gonzalez and Aegis, who were 1st and 3rd in the championship, likely to move up that way into MotoGP as well. Here is Manu Gonzalez, who's looking to try and lift himself out of Q1, and he does that to some tune, up 14 places, climbs himself up from 18, now up to 4th on a 1:22.567. Still 3/10 adrift of his chief title rival, Ivan Guevara, who leads the session with that 22.2 early on, but a bit of pressure lifted, if there was any, on the shoulders of Manu Gonzalez this afternoon.
Yeah, it makes the final 10 minutes a little bit easier, doesn't it, for Gonzalez? And there's a bit of a gap, more so than we're used to seeing in Moto2, especially around a tight and twisty circuit like the Sachsenring. Expect that to change, of course, in the final 10 minutes or so. Celestino Vietti needs a lap time, doesn't he, the Italian? We've said that a few too many times in recent Grand Prix. Celestino Vietti didn't even set a lap time, a competitive one anyway, in Friday's practice over in Assen. So a better Friday already than The Italian had at the Cathedral of Speed, snuck into the top 14 in Brno in P14, but missed the Q2 cut in Hungary just before that. So it's, yeah, 2 non-top 14s in the last 3 for Vietti, and currently that'll be 3 in the last 4 for the Italian, who enters pits assuming for fresh rubber. Got a bit of confidence for Vietti to squeeze in that top 14, but more pressure on the Italian shoulders than he would have wanted at this stage of the session.
Yeah, he does have a 100% Q2 record this season, but as El rightly mentioned, he's not got an automatic Q2 100% record so far this year. One rider's 100% auto Q2 record is under threat at the moment, and that is Colin Vire, who's down in 19th place at the moment for Red Bull KTM IO. We've got at this stage of the season, we've still got 8 riders with a 100% Q2 record. One of those will definitely go this weekend through no fault of his own because he's injured. That's Danny Munoz, because he did compete in Q2 even if he was disqualified from the whole qualifying process back in Assen. Ivan Ortola, Celestino Vietti, Manu Gonzalez, Ethan Cavara, David Alonso, Colin Vire and Danny Holgado have also been in every Q2 session this season. As climbing up the hill from 3 to 4, Zonta van den Gorberg was a little bit loose, and you now begin to plunge downhill once again. It doesn't quite do justice, but you get a bit of an idea here of the elevation change of this Sachsenring circuit. Flattens out a bit before you now start to climb uphill once again. That is through turn 8. We're now approaching 9 and 10, the final 2 left-handers in the sequence of 7 before the right-hander of the Ralph Baldwin curve, the fearsome turn 11, taking 4th gear on a Moto2 bike at around about 195 kilometers an hour. And we've already seen the MotoGP this morning. If you get that corner wrong, as Maverick Vinales did, then you could potentially hurt yourself, but certainly do some serious damage to your motorcycle. No problems on that particular occasion. As we pick up Furasato, who's now moved up into 8th place, keeping up his good recent run. Van der Gorberg completes his lap and he stays outside the top 20 at the moment. If he's got to get himself into Q2, he's going to find at minimum a quarter of a second.
Yeah, currently on his best point streak, his best run in Moto2. Zonta van den Gorberg was back in the points again over at the Dutch Grand Prix, of course, in front of his home fans. So that's points now in the last 4 Grand Prix, Mugello, Hungary, Brno, and as mentioned in the Netherlands a couple of weekends ago. Needs to find a bit of pace in this session in the latter stages as the Dutch rider, just a couple of places behind his countryman Colin Vire. 1.1 seconds both of those guys, including Celestino Vietti in P20. They are off the top time. I wonder if Ethan Guevara is just going to sit pretty in the box. I don't think he will, but we've seen that so far this season on a couple of occasions. I mean, top 14 looks fairly safe and sound, but Guevara doing what he's done on a couple of practices so far this season, setting a really hot pace early doors and then either choosing not to improve or simply being unable to improve from his early pace in the session.
Yeah, it's almost as if the Blue Crew Pramac team have got a sort of contrary approach to practice as to the rest of the Moto2 field, in terms of normally you'd naturally wait for the track to rubber in, conditions to be as fast as possible at the end of the session and set your fastest lap time then. It's also that Guevara's got an approach of, let's get myself a Q2 lap on the board immediately and then I can let the rest of practice be practice and focus on the race and race setup itself without fear of being knocked out of the top 14. It has generally worked, it's fair to say, for Guevara, and you would suspect that 122.2 might get beaten by someone, but you'd be highly impressed if 14 riders beat it at this stage. So Ethan Guevara's 100% automatic Q2 record looks firmly intact for another week.
Certainly does. Just keeping an eye on the Red Bull KTM IO duo, because they're the only 2 riders, as things stand, who are lighting up the timing screens that is a colour that isn't grey. Personal best for Colin Vire through the 3rd split, and for Jose Antonio Rueda through the 3rd split as well. Vire 6.5 tenths off and a little bit more. Rueda just over 7 tenths off, and the gap into the top 14 is 9 tenths. So if they can hold it to the line, you've got Colin Vire's time there at the bottom of your screen, and Jose Antonio Rueda just ahead of Danny Holgado on circuit. They do both jump into the top 14. I don't think they're quite safe and sound just yet. Holgado improves as well. But yeah, a decent lap times, or certainly banker lap times, to get himself into the top 14 for the Red Bull KTM Maju, but they will be wanting more than that.
Yeah, I feel like you need to be anything like confident of a place in Q2E. You need to be in the 122s. We're down to Holgado in 9th place on a 22.9, which kind of puts that Furasato lap into a bit of context, doesn't it? Another strong showing from the Japanese to go 8th on a 1:22.876. Partnered once again this weekend by his regular teammate Mario Aggi. Aggi's currently 22nd on a 23.4, so just 0.6 of a second between the Honda Team Asia teammates, but that amounts to 14 places in this Moto2 field.
Certainly does. David Alonso then heading out on circuit, the recent race winner, of course. P3 as things stand. Yeah, it's very tight. It's in the sort of lower ends of the top 10 and into the sort of top 20. Alistair Screech down there, second away. We're used to seeing him inside that top 14 on a Friday. Here is the Red Bull KTM duo of Colin Via. I was going to mention Via and Rueda setting personal best lap times again, slightly quicker than they were last time around, but you can see from the gaps that they do improve, which Via does. It's not going to promote them up the timesheets too much. It was P10 for Via, P11 for Rueda, now it's P11 for Via, P11 for Rueda and P6 for Alex Screech. That's more like where we're used to seeing a Screech in the top 14 on a Friday.
Yeah, 1:22.6 for Screech. Hasn't been in qualifying one since the French Grand Prix at Le Mans. He's been an ever-present in Q2 automatically since then. He's been another sort of standout breakout star of this season, to the point that there are strong reports that Alex Screech might well finally have earned himself a Calyx ride for next season.
Yeah, it sounds like it might be Italtrans who have captured the signature of a Screech. Nothing official yet, no confirmation of course, but it does sound like a Screech will certainly be moving on to a Calyx next season, which is
there are Moto2 wins in that young man, aren't there?
Absolutely. He's shown this year, okay, he's maybe not got the podium necessary results that reflected his pace. The right bike to be on right now, and yes, very excited to see a Screech on a Calyx next year, potentially in Italtrans colours. A Screech just following a Calyx right now in Senna Aegis, improved his time, the Australian, to go P4.
So Aegis and Gonzalez 4th and 5th for the Luca Modi Dynamo intact GP squad. Here is Holgado, who's struggling to improve on that 1:22.937 that he set a couple of laps ago, in 10th place at the moment, so you wouldn't say he's particularly safe from there. So we've now got a track on Celestino Vietti at the bottom of your screens. Vietti at the moment sitting down in 21st place, and the current projection is that he won't move up too far up the order from there. Vietti now tackling the final corner and staring at a wall of tarmac. It is very sharp uphill out of that final corner, and Vietti climbs 5 places, but at the moment that will not get him into Q2. At the moment his teammate is there, Luca Lunetta in 14th, but Vietti currently on the outside looking in.
Yeah, Lunetta back in the points over in Assen, a good recovery ride from a disappointing qualifying from the rookie, and he's back inside that top 14 as well. Joe Roberts, time went away in the third split for the American, who, as you can see, is P21 and needs time to join his teammate Philip Salach inside that top 14. Improves, does Roberts, but not enough to promote himself into the automatic Q2 places. Not got too much time to find, it's got to be said, to jump into that all-important top 14. The team looking on, and with the help of a bit of slipstream and reference in front of him from his teammate Salach, potentially this is the lap that will do it for Roberts.
Yeah, we've got the two Red Bull KTM riders on identical times at the moment. Via has just jumped ahead of Rueda by his next best lap being an improvement. So they're 12th and 13th with the Dutch ahead of the Spaniard. Then it's Lunetta in 14th. He's got less than 200ths of a second over Garcia and Vietti, who are both on identical times. We've got Sasaki on a 23.2 along with Zurutuza, Roberts, Huertas and Ferrandez as the yellow flags now come out at the Omega corner down at turn 3, which couldn't have come out at a worse time if you're outside the top 10. Aggi's just got himself in. He's lifted himself up into 12th place, and he has found that magic 1:22. And with Colin Via now down to 13th place and down at turn 3, he is now a nervous spectator.
Looks like that's on the exit as well. Maybe that bumper's caught out the Dutchman, unfortunately, for Colin Via. As you rightly mentioned, Lewis, P13, P14 for Rueda. That bike will be cleared as quickly as possible. Via will get to the edge of the circuit as quickly as possible. Now, the good thing is, this lap is pretty short, so you've got 1:30 left on the clock. On a lot of the circuits around this calendar, that won't be enough, but it is here at the Sachsenring as Joe Roberts does improve into the top 14, and that is good news. You can hear the applause inside the box. Now both of the American racing riders are going through to Q2 as things stand.
So now the IO teammates are identical times. One's in, one's out at the moment. 14th and 15th for Vaya and Rueda. What is Rueda doing at the moment? He's just started his final flying lap of the session. Manu Gonzalez is just at the fastest first sector of this practice session. We've got personal best through the first sector for Arbolino, for Roberts. Vaya had set one, but he's now on the floor. Alonso has also set a personal best. He's relatively safe at the moment, still up in third place. The finding improvements a little harder to come by, aren't they, in these latter stages? And for Celestino Vietti, who's going to get round to the line for one more shot at this. At the moment, he's staring Q1 flush in the face.
Certainly is. That time from Guevara on his second flying lap is still standing. Ortola on his second flying lap is still P2, and David Alonso on his second flying lap is still P3. The lap times earlier on in the session are proving hard to beat. Gonzalez lost 3 tenths in the second sector, another couple of tenths in the third sector. Gonzalez isn't going to be outside of the top 14 unless something ridiculous happens in the final 15 seconds and a little bit more. But a mistake there at the end of the lap for Gonzalez, who will be aiming to set a personal best lap time, but it looks like it's job done for the championship leader in this session.
I wouldn't say he's exactly blown our socks off today, has he? Manu Gonzalez, the world championship leader, albeit fastest this morning on a 1:22.483. Hasn't beaten that lap time this afternoon in practice, although he is just setting a personal best at the moment. As Ethan Guevara, who is once again sitting in the pits and letting everyone else get all hot and sweaty out on the racetrack. It does look as if Ethan Guevara is going to end this Friday afternoon at the Sachsenring on top with a new lap record to boot.
Yeah, one Bosco then going through potentially as a new all-time.
Qualifying one, and we've got Ferrandez in Q1, the front row starter, although of course he did come through Q1 to achieve that back in Assen. And a bit of a mixed bag of a day for the somber Mark VDS team. Let's get the negative out of the way first. Aaron Canet down in 23rd place, but they were looking for something to smile about. Denis Chu has provided them with that. He is through in 9th.
Yeah, good stuff from the Turk. Obviously seen him a lot so far in the opening couple of sessions, getting out of shape, attacking riders late on the brakes, just like we used to see in Denis Chu. So yeah, to get inside that top 14, top job from the number 53, and a top job of course from Ethan Guevara. We did mention that lap time. He's used to setting them early in the session. A big smile from Ethan Guevara, a thumbs up. Just the Friday he would have wanted after a disastrous Friday over in Assen.
Yeah, and the slight change of hairstyle, or at least hair colour for Ethan Guevara at the moment. It's brought him at least some positivity on track 2. 22.2 enough for Guevara to take top spot. Ivan Ortola for an MSI team, which I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that full name for, given the additional sponsor they've brought in for this weekend. But the team itself have at least got one rider through the Q2 with Ortola. Angel Piqueras, who was only 1.1 seconds off second of the MSI Calix's, 24th for him. So he'll be another heading through qualifying one. Of course, an injury hit first half of his Moto2 rookie season for him. And David Alonso will be more than pleased with his Friday afternoon's work, won't he? Third quickest overall. Top 3 all setting their best lap of the session on their first time lap of the afternoon. All 3 of them with their best lap on lap 2. Of course, their first lap was the out lap to start the session. The track conditions perhaps just not really evolving and coming on and conducive to fast lap times the longer it got and the hotter it got into this afternoon session, which was good news in particular for Ethan Guevara, your fastest rider on the opening day here in Germany. Guevara quickest then with a new Moto2 all-time lap record. Ivan Ortola hot on his heels, with David Alonso, the in-form Aspar rider, 3rd. Senna Regis and Manu Gonzalez 4th and 5th, but intact. Philip Salich 6th ahead of Alex Scridge, who was one of the late improvers, to take 7th. Arbolino, Unchu and Forasato are completing the top 10. For Forasato, that is now a 3rd consecutive automatic Q2 appearance. Robert Holgado Adji on his return from injury, fine effort for him, and Colin Vaya through to Q2. That keeps Vaya's 100% Q2 record intact. Rueda, Linetta, Garcia, notably Celestino Vietti heading for Q1. Sasaki and Zuratuza completing the top 20. Was 27 in total in action this weekend, with Danny Munoz absent through injury. Ethan Guevara then, your fastest rider on day 1 in Germany. Can he close in on the championship leader Manu Gonzalez before going on the summer break? We'll find out the answer to that as we go through the weekend. Up next here at the Sachsenring though, it's the crucial 1-hour MotoGP practice session with Q2 places up for grabs.
MotoGP has moved from the Netherlands to Germany to tackle the Sachsenring's spectacular undulation and tight turns. Nestled in the heart of rural Saxony and close to the Polish and Czech border, racing on 2 and 4 wheels are taking place in this corner of East Germany since the 1920s. Short in length but always high on drama. Practice is next live. It's time for MotoGP. This the 87th Grand Prix to take part in Germany. 28th time we visited the current configuration of the Sachsenring, one of 6 anti-clockwise tracks on the calendar. Tight and twisty, 3.671 kilometres in length, the shortest track on the entire 22-round calendar. Tight and twisty in that first sector, the horseshoe through turn 3, the Omega corner, before the track really does come into its own. A sequence of 4th and 5th gear corners, you power through turn 7, through to turn 12, including the spectacular plunge down through the Ralph Waldman curve, turn 11. 1, 12 and 13, the most demanding for brakes.
Lagi MotoGP.
Good afternoon and welcome back to a gloriously sunny Sachsenring. It's the Liqui Moly Grand Prix of Germany, round 11, halfway distance coming up in this year's MotoGP World Championship before we're all due to head off on our 3-week summer holidays. Who'll be enjoying the sunshine the most as we continue our latest chapter in what is turning out to be a rather intriguing, a rather absorbing 2026 MotoGP title chase, as just 4 riders at the top of the standings are split by less than 25 points. Jorge Martin is your series leader as he looks for more success at a Sachsenring circuit where he was victorious here back in 2023. He's won both of his previous sprint visits here, has Martin, as he looks to build on a 7-point lead over Aprilia factory racing teammate Marco Bezzecchi as we head into the summer break. Fabio Di Gianantonio 16 points back off the top of the leaderboard. Another strong start to proceedings this morning in FP1 for the Italian, as he was 3rd quickest. And Ayagura, of course, is the 4th rider, one of 4 riders who could quite possibly go into the summer break, leading the standings at the halfway point of this year's championship. The Japanese rider brought crashing back down to earth with a bit of a bump this morning, only 17th fastest in FP1. He hasn't really got a reputation of being a super fast starter, has he, Ayagura? Well, we have not been able to say that over the last couple of Grand Prix in Brno and in Assen, where he has double podiums in both, including that unforgettable first victory for a Japanese rider in MotoGP in 22 long years. That brilliant podium burst has fired Agura into championship contention as he looks to be the first Japanese rider in history to win back-to-back MotoGP races. Great times, super times right now for Superfar Trackhouse, and those times continue fresh off the back of their double 1-2 in the Grand Prix of the Netherlands. Well, Ralf Fernandez, a bit of a milestone moment for the Spanish rider. First time in his MotoGP career. What is this, his 89th start, that he has actually started a weekend in P1. A 1:20.829, getting the job done this morning for Fernandez, the sprint winner over in Assen, second to Ayagura. He was there, of course. One of our 6 anti-clockwise venues with Aragon, Austin, Valencia, Phillip Island and Balaton, which generally means that Marc Marquez is going to have a big say in the outcome of the weekend. He was second fastest this morning. Practice then, about to get underway in the company of Matt Burt Lewis in the commentary box. Jacob down in pit lane. No stopping Trackhouse and Ralf Fernandez right now, Lewis. Brilliant double podium for him in Assen last time out. And he was really rapid and super fast this morning, once again, leading FP1.
Feels like the summer break's coming at a bad time for them, doesn't it? With the momentum they have picked up, which continues to gather pace. With Ralf Fernandez fastest in that FP1 session this morning. Marc Marquez, though, right behind him and clearly will still take some stopping this weekend. But the Aprilia contingent must look at this weekend, as I said this morning, as an opportunity to upset Marc Marquez and give him something to think about heading into the summer break. Marc Marquez, of course, will be looking to give his championship rivals some serious summer blues with victory here this weekend. He was next best behind Ralf Fernandez, P2, despite a fall this morning.
A very early fall on just his third lap of the weekend at turn 3. The 33-year-old Spaniard was on the deck, one of several riders there across all classes that's been caught out by this tricky bump, this nasty, pesky bump right here on the exit of turn 3. You can just see there the twitch as Marc was on the throttle on the factory Ducati. That was the only momentary blip of his morning session, because he rebounded and found a 1:20.880, that coming on lap 9 of 20 that he was able to successfully complete this morning. Already a dozen wins in the locker. He is a serial winner around the Sachsenring, isn't he, Marc Marquez? 9 times he's prevailed in MotoGP. 10 previous starts here in the top class. He has never finished lower than second, which he did so here back in 2024. Clearly the big favourite. Whenever you talk to any rider, any team manager, anybody connected to MotoGP in the paddock in the Sachsenring, they will tell you 93 starts the weekend as the overwhelming big favourite, as he looks to close down a 40-point deficit at the top of the championship.
Yeah, I almost feel like it must come actually on the tickets at the German Grand Prix. German Grand Prix at the Sachsenring, which will be won by Marc Marquez. That was certainly the case in 2025. Fabio Di Gianantonio will be one of 20 other MotoGP riders this weekend, looking to ensure that Marc doesn't take a 10th MotoGP victory at the Sachsenring. And Didier also in fine fettle this morning, the all-time lap record holder here at the Sachsenring, completed the top 3 earlier.
One of only 4 riders this morning, Didier, that found sub 121 laps, his best work, a 1:20.936, 7th time this year he's kicked off the weekend inside the top 3. He's always been rapid out the gates so far this season, Didier, and we have to factor him in now as a big equation in the championship. 16 points he is over Martin, 177 points collected from our opening 10 rounds of the season so far. A whole bunch of top 6s, a smattering of sprint podiums, including third place last time out in Assen when he really did gate crash the Aprilia party. And of course, to boot, 3 Sunday Grand Prix podiums as well. That's been the platform for Didier's success so far in 2026.
It's just having all the makings at the moment of a golden MotoGP season, a true classic campaign building up as we reach the halfway stage at the end of this weekend, with 6 different Grand Prix winners, 6 different sprint winners, 10 different Grand Prix podium finishes, 11 different sprint podium finishes already in the first half of the season. And it's Jorge Martin, who you saw there with the eye dropped in, to make sure you can see clearly this afternoon at the Sachsenring, who carries a 7-point World Championship lead. A lead that I think he would have even given himself long odds on when the campaign began.
It's been a season of first at Aprilia for Martin, his first win coming in Le Mans. Last time out in Assen was his first RSGP pole position. He was 10th, a little bit low-key this morning from the World Championship leader. Alex Marquez briefly led the way this morning in FP1. the
Sebentar
30-year-old
lagi
finally.
mulai, 1
This
menit
has
lagi.
been a long time in the making, long time coming. Finally,
18
the
detik
news
lagi.
officially made public by Alex Marquez and KTM. He'll be in orange, so too will Fabio Di Giannantonio.
Ya,
Brad
ini
Binder
sudah
and Pedro
berganti,
Acosta making
tabelnya
way
sudah
for a
berganti
very
ya.
experienced factory KTM lineup next year. Fabio Di Giannantonio will be north of 200 Grand Prix starts when he moves to the RC16 next year. Alex Marquez already north of 250 Grand Prix starts next year. So one of the most experienced lineups will be in orange in 2027.
And all 5 factory teams now confirmed will have new lineups for next season, either completely new or half new.
Ya,
We're
sebentar
awaiting
lagi
Honda to
mulai.
confirm their factory lineup, but we know that Joan Mir is departing their team to go across to the Cassini Ducati squad for next season, where he'll be partnered by Danny Holgado. Here is the former World Championship leader, or there was, Marco Bezzecchi, who I think will be reasonably pleased with how his morning effort went. A weekend where he wasn't really sure what kind of expectations to set ahead of the German Grand Prix. Bezzecchi up inside the top 8 in FP1.
He has to stop this poor run on Sundays. He has to stop hemorrhaging big points to some of his major title rivals. As mentioned this morning, he's lost 69 points to Marc Marquez and 63 points to Ayagura in just the last 3 Grand Prix. It doesn't seem that long ago, does it, when Bezzecchi was over 100 points clear of Marc Marquez. Marquez himself declaring title defence over. Well, he said yesterday in the pre-event press conference, title defence now very much game on, as Marc sits just 40 points off Jorge Martin at the top of the standings. Crucial practice session then coming your way in what are the hottest conditions of the date so far. 3 p.m. local time here on Friday afternoon in the Sachsenring. Beautiful sunny day, which we're happy to report. You can see from these live pictures a few early week forecasts are predicting a bit of rain to hit this part of East Germany. But thankfully, despite a smattering of a few clouds, predominantly with those clear blue skies, and we are set for what we hope is going to be a rather tension-filled and dramatic-filled 60-minute session. Top 10 as always, just to remind you, will advance directly into tomorrow's second qualifying session.
Yeah, we're expecting it to be super close, given what we saw this morning in pre-practice 1, where 20 of the 21 in the field, of course with no Fermin Aldeguer here for Cassini this weekend, which is why there are only 21 starters this weekend for the German Grand Prix. 20 within a second. Ralph Fernandez down to Luca Marini on the factory under only Cal Crutchlow. Of course, the continued replacement for Joan Zarco was outside and 1 second back from Ralph Fernandez. Shortest, or one of the shortest laps of the year, just 3.6 kilometres, 2.281 miles. In terms of distance, it's the shortest. In terms of sheer lap time, it's what, a second or 2 longer in terms of a lap than we had in Goiânia at the start of the season. Only 13 corners, so thousandths of a second are going to make the difference here.
Yeah, the MotoGP field this weekend are going to be doing, this is just race laps alone, 15-lap sprint, 30-lap Grand Prix. They're going to be tackling left corners 450 times if you go the full distance over the races. Quite a unique Michelin tire occasion as well this weekend, which is worth covering off. With Goiânia, of course, we made our first visit to Brazil in over 20 years earlier on this season, with Valencia and with Phillip Island. This one of only 4 tracks on the Grand Prix calendar where all front tyres and all rear tyres are asymmetric in configuration. Of course, the harder compound on the left-hand side of tyre, given the fact that 13 corners, 10 of the 13 corners here in the Sachsenring go left, this being one of them. Down the hill we go through turn 2, now to one of those 3 right-handers. This is turn 3, the Omega corner, which has been pretty problematic on the exit. Frankie Morbidelli on board with, who tumbled off this morning. It was Fabio Di Giannantonio rather, but his teammate Frankie Morbidelli did succumb to that big bump on the exit of turn 3.
Yeah, it's been a feature in all 3 classes of racing so far today. We've had riders go down on that particular bump. The majority of the work on the front tyres this morning were done on the soft and the medium. We've got everybody, with the exception of top pack Razgatioglu at the moment, who have gone out on the hard front tyre. As the temperatures come up, that hard front tyre will get into its working temperature nicely. In terms of the rear tyre, the vast majority have gone out on the medium rear. We've got Acosta, Rins, Miller and Pecco Bagnaia, along with Jorge Martin, the World Championship leader, who've gone out on the soft rear.
Even on an outlap, even just building pace, as Fabio Di Giannantonio and Ralph Fernandez we're looking at right now, when they drop down through turn 11, it's super scary stuff, isn't it? One of the most spectacular corners on the calendar. This will now be Raul fastest this morning, and Digia winding their way up to full racing speed.
Pedro
Acosta didn't really speak much of Acosta this morning, did we?
Pertama Pedro Acosta.
breaking himself back in gently after undergoing surgery post-Assen, carpal tunnel surgery. He's been experiencing, he said, for about the last 12 months or so, issues with a numbness feeling, a lack of feeling, tingling sensation in the right hand and the lower right forearm. It was his lowest FP1 this morning since, coincidentally, 13th here in the Sachsenring exactly 12 months ago. There's a bit of a head shake there on gas for Marco Bezzecchi's factory Aprilia as he powered up the hill through turn 9.
It's back-to-back DNFs for Acosta now too on Sunday afternoons. Of course, Bezzecchi's got back-to-back DNFs. Either side of it did not start back at the Czech Grand Prix, and Acosta's another rider who will feel that had he had some better luck so far this season, he would be right in that World Championship battle as well. 63 points covers the top 8, which does include Acosta. Here comes Marco Bezzecchi then, looking to get us into the 120s. It was a 20.8 from Ralph Fernandez this morning, so that from Bezzecchi is already the fastest lap of the day.
Acosta's title hopes have taken a massive blow over those last couple of Grand Prix. He scored just the 1 point in the last 2 rounds, that 9th place in the Assen sprint. Bruno and Assen are back-to-back DNFs in MotoGP for the very first time for the normally super consistent 22-year-old Spaniard. He's not a rider that tends to have too many DNFs in the column, is he? The former Moto3 and Moto2 world champion. And the second time in his entire Grand Prix career that he's gone back-to-back races without seeing the checkered flag. He'll be looking to rectify that situation this weekend, as straight away, well, this morning we only had 4 riders that were able to find laps in the 120s. On the first flying laps of this afternoon session, we've got 6 immediately into the 120s. The best of them is Bezzecchi, a 120.6, which is the fastest time of the day already on just lap 3. All-time lap record, just for your reference, is Fabio Di Gianantonio's 1:19.071.
It's going to be one of the beauties of a World Championship battle between multiple manufacturers as we go through this season, largely between Ducati and Aprilia. Potentially Pedro Costa might get KTM involved in the action as well, but they're going to have various circuits through the calendar that they're going to look at and think those are our tracks, those are potentially banker venues for us. Clearly Assen was Aprilia favoured, locked out the podium on the Sunday, locked out the top 4 places on the grid. Aprilia will also look at potentially the likes of Silverstone later in the year, potentially Lombok in Indonesia, potentially if we base it on Bezzecchi's performances last year. But this is surely one that Ducati and Marc Marquez will have circled on the calendar to say that is one venue where we can make big points up.
Ducati have won all 3 sprints here at the Sachsenring. They've taken the last 5 pole positions right here in the Grand Prix of Germany, and they've locked out the last 3 Grand Prix podiums, including in 2023 and 2024 when they locked out the top 5. And so this has been Ducati land over the last few years or so. Cutting to a real tight line there, was he? Running right over the inside curve there at 3 was Ralph Fernandez, almost like a deliberate ploy to make sure that he didn't put himself in that danger zone with the big bump. So we will listen to Fabio Di Gianantonio. Very hard to give you kind of accurate judge there, an accurate gauge of just how much the track falls away going through that spectacular turn 11 at full speed. They're motoring through there, 200 kilometers an hour in 5th gear. We saw Maverick Vinales take a pretty nasty fall there this morning. The Spaniard thankfully emerging uninjured. Well, it was another brilliant performance, wasn't it, by the factory Aprilias, all 4 Aprilias last time out over in Assen. As they locked out the top 4 on the grid for the very first time. Second time this season they locked out the podium. Jorge Martin back on top of the World Championship. What lies in store in Germany? I'm delighted to say, as always, fascinating to get the thoughts of the boss, Paolo Norwich.
Yeah, once again this 2026 season showing that from weekend to weekend so much can change. Now suddenly it's Jorge Martin that leads the World Championship, Marco Bezzecchi dropping to second. So let's start with the championship leader, Paolo, because I imagine 10 races in at the start of the season, if someone would have told you Jorge would be leading the World Championship, you would have been quite surprised. How has he managed to be leading the championship at this stage?
Quite surprised. You find the correct word, absolutely. It's something that makes us happy because we have seen that we did a great job with him. And yeah, despite of the many points lost by Marco during the last 3 races, it seems to be that we are part of the game. We are playing good in Brno, in Assen as well. In all the first part of the season, there is no one race where we didn't find, probably at the end, in the last moment on Sunday, but we found something to give to the rider the correct confidence. So for us was absolutely a positive first part of the season. This is the last race before the summer break. We need the summer break to recover the battery for sure and to be prepared for the second one. Now it is something very particular track, very technical track. It is like a kart circuit, but it is necessary to take care about all the corner, because there is one specific split where you have to manage very carefully the rear tire to keep the tire temperature in the correct window. Otherwise, when you are approaching the last part of the split of the circuit, you will find something tricky to manage with the rear slide and the front tire as well, because with the most of the corner on the left, you find the 11 corner, the very special corner on the right, so you have to take care about it. So very technical track, but we have seen also last year that we can manage both our rider, but for sure also the Trackhouse one could give a good results to the Aprilia staff. So looking forward to see what happened during the weekend. For sure the weather forecast will help a little bit, because it's getting a little bit warmer during today, the Saturday and the Sunday as well. The expect is 25, so it's not bad.
For Marco, he spoke to us yesterday saying that the body is still quite sore from Assen. So how was the body this morning? And you mentioned there about needing to recharge the batteries. How much of this weekend for Marco is about building himself back up again so he can go into the summer break, reset and come back out swinging in the second half?
Very important for him, very important. It is necessary for him to recover the trust on not on the bike, because he trusts the bike, he trusts the staff, he trusts the team for sure, but to recover the trust on himself, to don't make with too much aggressive the first part of the race, because we know he could achieve a very good result also in Assen. I don't know if he have the possibility to win, but for sure to be on the podium. Because the race pace during the session, he showed that he was every time on the first part of the ranking, and yeah, his physical situation is not the best one. After such a big crash, he has to recover. He said to us that yeah, he feel a little bit not in perfect situation, but his energy will cover everything.
Just finally, did you see anything this morning that makes you think you can beat Marc Marquez here?
we know that here historically is a Marc track. He won many times here, so he will be the references, and for sure we will try to beat him and to do our best.
Thanks, Paolo. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, as always, to the ever-interesting Aprilia boss Paolo Bonora. If Aprilia are to defeat Marc Marquez here this weekend in Germany, they're going to have to do something they've never done here before in the Sachsenring, and that is score a podium in the Grand Prix format. Their best, Aleix Espargaro's 4th place here back in 2022. They do have a couple of second places in sprints, but on Sunday Grand Prix here in the Sachsenring, Aprilia have never troubled Parc Ferme Total Grand Prix. That's going to have to change if they're going to lay some gloves on Marc Marquez.
Yeah, Zeki did crash out of a podium position last year, of course, famously in the turn one of poor judgment when several riders were going down in the space of 3 or 4 laps of each other. And that's the way Aprilia have got to look at this weekend. They can't just come here with the attitude of we're playing for second place and expecting Marc Marquez to do the winning. They've got to try and strike a psychological blow of their own here in this World Championship, because there's been a lot of talk in recent Grand Prix of Aprilia potentially shooting themselves in the foot with the start line collision in Hungary, with Fernandez and Martin tripping over each other on the Sunday in Barcelona, and either one of them could have won the Grand Prix on that occasion. Of course, Benzecchi's Brno incident, which has been well documented. There's no question that Aprilia have left a lot of points on the table in the first half of this season, but they've got to see this weekend as an opportunity to land a blow of their own. Don't think of this as a let's try and just take second place behind Marc Marquez and get out of Germany. Go out and try and beat him. Of course, don't crash trying to achieve it. But what would it say about Aprilia and their title challenge going into the second half of the campaign if they can defeat Marc Marquez at the Sachsenring? It would be a huge milestone for them.
It was Ayagura then dropping down through turn 2. First Japanese winner in MotoGP in 397 races. Their first win since Motegi with Makoto Tamada back in 2024, back in 2004 rather. 7,952 days between Japanese wins in MotoGP. Fantastic weekend all round, wasn't it, for Ayagura. Didn't panic when he got a little bit beaten up in the early stage of that Netherlands Grand Prix. Dropped down to what, 5th or 6th place at one point, and then just cruised his way through the field to take a relatively convincing win by over 2 seconds. He felt this is a tougher challenge, a tougher prospect this weekend for Agura, who by his own admission said he'd be happy to head back home to Japan for his summer break with a pair of top 6 finishes. How's he getting on this afternoon at the moment? He's down in 16th place, which I suppose if we look on the positives, is 1 place higher than when he finished FP1 this morning when he was in a lowly 17th.
Yeah, we've got an Aprilia leading, Aprilia 4th, teammate to Ayagura. Ralph Fernandez is in that 4th place, only top this morning. We've got Martin in 8th place at the moment. Some 3/10 of a second away from the next Aprilia ahead of him, which is Martin on a 1:21.1. We're surely going to be well into the low 20s, if not the 1:19s, by the time we get to the business end of this practice session. The lap record, I don't think that's going to come under any great threat this afternoon. Could be wrong, but a 1:19.0 Fabio Di Gianantonio from Friday afternoon last year does feel out of range at this stage. Benzecchi currently on a mid-120 to lead this session at the quarter mile. Mark.
1:20.727, his best time of the day so far. Slightly faster than the 1:20.8 he mustered this morning. Marc Marquez, he'll be happy with a double podium. Of course he wants more. I think he said yesterday, didn't he? I think there'll be a view that if Marc doesn't take the full 37 points this weekend, it'll be viewed as something of a bit of a disaster, but he is thinking bigger picture, having got himself back into championship contention. Having done so, he's not going to want to blow too many points here by going and taking too many silly risks to try and make it another Sachsenring double, just as he did here 1 year ago. Of course, he was a different physical proposition when he attacked the German Grand Prix in 2025. This is a very different Marc Marquez, who said yesterday, he was asked by our colleague Adam Wheeler in the press conference, who does he see as his biggest threat, his biggest rival in this year's World Championship? He said, well, it's very simple. It's my own body. It's my own physical shape. How much will Marc need to take out of himself to extend his golden winning record here in the Sachsenring?
Now, Marc Marquez, for all the great memories he has here in the Sachsenring, for all the many victories he's taken in MotoGP, Moto2 and 125, over the course of a glittering 15-16 year winning sequence at the Sachsenring. There have been some low points in the middle of all that as well. It was here that I think the penny finally dropped. Marc Marquez had enough of Repsol Honda when he had those 5 crashes back in 2023. The crash in the morning warm-up, which ultimately led him to call it a day at the end of the warm-up session. Didn't even start the Grand Prix on that particular occasion, and then even the second place he took to Pecco Bagnaia here on screen in 2024. Marc had a big crash earlier in the weekend on Friday. He was far from 100% physically fit on that occasion either. So Marc knows better than anybody that as strong as he is around this circuit, if he does start taking undue risks, then he could quite easily find himself in yet more injury trouble, which at this stage of the season, at this stage of his career, is the furthest thing Marc Marquez wants.
He's going to unleash himself more than what he did, or more than what he was happy to do so last time out in Assen, where you just felt like there was no point from the first lap of FP1 on Friday to the last lap of that Sunday's race at the TT Circuit Assen. Did you really feel like Marc was really sticking his neck out and putting it all on the line? He said himself it was a safety mode weekend. Well, has that safety mode been fully disengaged? Is he in full attack mode here this weekend to go for the full 37 points, a 37-point maximum haul, which would really ramp up the pressure on those ahead of him in the World Championship? He has climbed up to 5th overall in the rankings. He's 15 points behind Ayagura in 4th place in the standings. So there's Luca Marini. A bit of welcome cheer for the Italian, who had a pretty miserable morning session, did Luca, on the factory Honda, down in 20th place. He's up now into P12. 121.7 this morning, has been bettered by a 121.4 so far this afternoon. Strong links connecting Marini with a possible seat at Tech 3 KTM in 2027. We know he has no place at Honda next year, so it looks like maybe potential career lifeline could be thrown to him by Gunther Steiner and the Austrian factory.
And what we can say with growing confidence by the weekend is that Maverick Vinales isn't going to be part of that Tech 3 KTM team for next season. That is the spot that is going to open up potentially for Luca Marini with Tech 3 clear. Gunther Steiner has told us this, he told Jack this a couple of weekends ago, that they have an eye on one experienced and one rookie to make up their Tech 3 KTM lineup for next season. And Vinales with some, once again, very strong and forthright comments, which won't have pleased KTM or Tech 3 top brass yesterday on the eve of this German Grand Prix weekend. And a weekend for Vinales that has started off track with some disappointment or some unhappiness, and it started on track with a high-speed get-off at the Ralph Ullmann curve, turn 11 earlier on this morning, where he made a complete mess of his KTM.
Sometimes you can talk your way into a gig, sometimes you can talk your way out of a gig, and it seems like that's the strategy that's being employed right now by Maverick Vinales, who just seems to have gone full motor mouth, full guns blazing, the Top Gun on KTM management at the moment. Certainly, I think it's fair to say, rather dissatisfied with how his 27 job prospects have turned out, as we once again track Fabio Di Gianantonio down the hill into the Saxon curve. Third gear through here, about 115, 120 kilometers an hour before this sharp climb up through the second gear Queckenberg. Turn 13, just for reference, the long lap penalty loop was on the outside of that final corner. How's Digi getting on yet? Having a consistent run. That's another low 121 from the Italian as he completes his 10th lap of the session. His best time so far this afternoon is that 120.875.
Yeah, well, 0.6 of a second covering the top 10 of Bezzecchi, Marc, Alex Marquez, Ralph Fernandez Acosta, Gianantonio Bagnaia, Martin Miller and Morbidelli at the moment. So we've got representation from Aprilia, Ducati, KTM and Yamaha. With Jack Miller on the Pramac number 43 bike in 9th place. Leading Honda at the moment is the aforementioned Luca Marini in 12th place on a 21.402. Juan Mir, who was the leading Honda this morning, he was in the 120s this morning. Mir, 4th quickest overall earlier on today. He's yet to find a 120 this afternoon, which is why the 2020 champion is down in 19th.
Ralph Fernandez has only had one better MotoGP weekend in the Sprint and Grand Prix era compared to Assen last time out. That was his memorable experience in Phillip Island last year, where he won his first Grand Prix success down under in Australia. Keeping himself in title contention, is he, Fernandez? Do not rule him out. One of a few dark horse contenders, you feel, for glory potentially in 2026. First podium in 9 Grand Prix last time out over in Assen. Assen was only the second time in his Grand Prix career he's led on a Sunday. His 89th start. And the previous time he'd been at the front of the Grand Prix was in that very same Australian Grand Prix last year. What's happened here between Morbidelli and Acosta? And it is, yeah, Morbidelli,
right, so
who has been a frequent visitor to the hot water section of MotoGP, hasn't he? Late this time around, it's Pedro Acosta that's getting a little bit irate. It was Bastianini on another KTM, which came across a cruising Morbidelli at one of the fastest parts, one of the scariest parts of Assen, and we saw Frankie once again have an appointment with Simon Crayfart, the chief FI MotoGP steward. The naughty step might be awaiting once again.
There's more editions of that movie than the Star Wars series, unfortunately, for Frankie Morbidelli, and it always seems to happen for Frankie when he's on a slower lap, potentially an out lap. For just looking at our timing screens, he is on a 10th lap of the session. I don't think he's been recently in the pits as Frankie Morbidelli, but once again, just dawdling on the racing line. There are a few other ways of putting it, and this time it was Pedro Acosta almost coming across at the wrong possible moment. It was Bastianini on another KTM who nearly ran into the back of Morbidelli in the super fast turn 12-13 sequence back at Assen. That was already a second defence of the season for Frankie Morbidelli, so he might be about to chalk up a third.
Shame that for Acosta, because he just set the fastest first section of the session as well, so he was flying. That's what Acosta was so hot under the collar about, understandably so. And the FI and MotoGP stewards will be monitoring very closely. Maybe another indiscretion from Frankie Morbidelli. Lots to talk about though with KTM Motorsport Director Pit Byron, an all-new factory lineup next year featuring Alex Marquez and Fabio Di Antonio. Some experience like that for the Austrian brand next year. This ongoing saga about who will be occupying the two seats at Tech 3 next year. So playing to get through with Jack and Pit Byron.
Yeah, absolutely. We heard from both the Gresini and the Yamaha camps this morning on their 2027 lineup, so it's only fair that we get Pit, your opinion on your brand new lineup for 2027, and what an exciting one it is as well. Alex Marquez and Fabio Di Antonio, both proven MotoGP race winners, now in the prime of their careers. I imagine you're delighted to have that blend of talent going at it in 2027.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because for us maybe it was a crucial moment what's going on the rider market, and but then when everything was quite turbulent, to secure two boys of this on this level, both Alex and Fabio, boys with an amazing skills for MotoGP. I mean, what they can do is proven on track, everybody can see the same thing what I could see, but beside that also getting two persons on board which are just really nice boys. So all in all, it's something we are really looking forward to for next season.
You've always been really honest with us and said replacing a talent like Pedro Acosta was always going to be difficult, but going into a new era, new regulations, new tyres, having that blend of experience, do you think you've gone a long way in replacing what Pedro brings to KTM?
Well, I mean, it's no secret. I mean, we had to swallow that Pedro wants to leave us because he's so long with us, Rookies Cup, Moto3 World Champion, Moto2 World Champion, broken leg, coming back, you know, like so many things we went through together, and then yeah, we were just building together the project and him as a rider. But as always, life goes on. There is one moment it was like looking for us quite frustrating, honestly, because we never planned for like the replacement. Of course, we were putting all cards on him somehow, but always if one door is closing, another one is opening, and then we just could see that these boys are developing really strong. They made both of them another clear step this year in performance, and to get in contact with them, to talk to them, to make a deal with them was refreshing. In the same moment, of course, in the background, we feel this 850 is a perfect restart for KTM, because in the whole project so far we never had the chance to really overthink everything good again and make major changes to something what we want to do, for example, in the bike characteristic, because the bike is just growing and then you add on development. But all the learning now from I would say 2 bike models which we had in our short MotoGP career is now packed into the 850, but the 850 needs also super strong riders, and I feel this package is getting complete now, and we are really looking forward to this.
You mentioned a full reset. It does seem as though all 4 current KTM riders will be leaving at the end of 2026. Maverick Vinales this weekend, quite strong in his comments, saying that KTM offered him a contract, he signs that contract, and then 2 weeks later was told that contract wasn't valid. It's only fair I give you the opportunity to give your side of the story. What has happened with Maverick? Because just a short time ago you were speaking so glowingly about what an effort he has done last year to bring KTM to where they are today. So what has gone so wrong between the pair of you?
Wow, I mean, it's no secret that somehow we had hoped that he will be one of the factory riders in the future. And so last summer we were discussing this and opened this door and this discussion. But he told us, don't worry for my health, I'm back by Spielberg last year. That's where he made his first comeback. Since then we are waiting always week by week to have him to full form. And there was a moment when we had the chance to get Alex and Fabio, and in that moment Maverick was just nowhere near to show us that he will come back to that old form. We wouldn't need a better rider than Maverick was when exactly here today a year ago, when he had this stupid crash in the rain. And but from there things went somehow terribly wrong, because later on we told him, but there will be a space for you, but we cannot tell you where and what. But then looks like he underestimated that this could be also the team where he is today, where he had great performance last year. I didn't know that this is for him no option. So somehow, I mean, he chose now to say that our second team, which is not the B-level team. I mean, we are working that both teams are getting on a first-class level, especially now with Günther. I feel the boys, Günther is pushing so strong together with us, we can create a fantastic team for the future. And I mean, don't you think, or we, like the rider market doesn't get better by waiting. And what do you think who we were waiting for? Waiting and not signing a rider was just purely to give Maverick more time to get ready, to show us something. I needed to show something. I also cannot just take a rider and say, Günther, that's your rider. I mean, we are planning together. We decided clearly one of the guys will be a young rider coming out of Moto2, but we want an experienced rider next to it. So I really feel sorry for the situation, because we like Maverick so much. He's such a good boy, and I don't know why he says so clearly no to one thing, and on the other side gives us such a hard stop. So we have to clear that out. It's not a nice situation, but it's definitely not like we told him please leave. We started a negotiation, and we still have a spot, which we still call a factory spot, because we see both teams as factory, 4 factory spots in total. So yeah, that's what I can say. I don't want to tell you now any contract details and what happened, which and where, but it's not a funny situation.
So just to clarify, as soon as those 2 factory seats were taken by both Alex and Fabio, you've offered him the spot at Tech2, and Maverick himself has said that that's not an option.
I don't want to tell you in detail what he said in which moment, because now you're going to ask him again, and then this goes like ping pong. But we started just a very normal contract conversation. We talked already about figures and stuff, how the future could look. But then at one stage things went just wrong when he found out it's not about the factory spot. And like I said, I understand this frustration, because that was his hope, and he's believing in the factory, and he's ready to fight for the factory, and so he wanted a seat in that one team. But yeah, I don't know. We have to calm him down, because it's still this year a very long season, and we need to get him back in a better mood, and also still get his full body fitness back, because MotoGP is damn dangerous not to be fit and always hesitating on reaction on the bike. So we still need him slightly fitter, and I think we need to talk properly what happened and why he should say clearly no to some, for me, great place in this paddock. And let's use the summer break to calm down and maybe restart in a positive way after that.
So just very quickly, that door is still open to Maverick, or would you say it's now closed?
We will now, I will say everything is open over the whole weekend here. That was our deadline between me and Günther, where we really want to decide what the future brings. So we never said no to Maverick, so the target or the timing didn't change. And because of one emotional talk, because we should not forget, I really want to protect this boy. We are talking here about, if he takes this decision, could be his end of racing. And so it's very sensitive, and that he's not just always calm about this, and I can fully understand. So because just he said one time something too strong, no problem with us. The spot is open, but time is ticking against us.
Thanks as ever for your honesty, Pete. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, great stuff. Cracking into that, Jack, down there with KTM Motorsport Director Pit Byra. It's pretty clear when if you read the websites, the social media channels, the press here in MotoGP, Maverick Vinales has decided to go on the attack in some respects against KTM. Maverick will have his reasons, he'll have his motives for that particular strategy, but you have to say the Pit Byra has just mounted a very robust defence and a very plausible defence about KTM's position on the situation. Door not then fully closed on Maverick Vinales in terms of 2027 KTM seat, although I think it's not quite ajar either. It's yeah, this one's going to all play out, isn't it, over the next few days, weeks and months or so. If you believe the gossip columns as well, it looks like Vinales' tenure, not just at KTM, is over, but maybe his Grand Prix career is over as well, as Pitt alluded to there. So it is tough times, it's difficult moments for a rider who's won 10 times in MotoGP. Senna Aegis and Luca Marini, possibly maybe Manu Gonzalez. Those three names are being strongly linked with Tech 3 next year. Decision time, though, is coming quickly. Hard to argue with anything that Pitt said there, really, Lewis.
No, for me, it's very, very simple. No one, I don't think anyone in this paddock is doubting the talent that Maverick Vinales has got. Winner in MotoGP for 3 different manufacturers, and you know, he's in a very elite club of riders who could say they've done that in their career. But since this Grand Prix last year, since the crash, which Pit Byra described as a stupid crash in the rain, it was, yeah, a crash that, you know, could very easily happen in any rain-affected session. When he damaged his shoulder, Maverick Vinales has not been the same rider since. And I've said this before already at the start of the season, if you're giving Maverick Vinales a 2-year contract potentially at this stage for 2027 and 2028, you are guessing that he is going to physically get to where he is in the coming year, year and a half, 2 years. And you know, every rider signing is a guess to a certain extent, because no one can predict the future. But I think quite understandably KTM would want to see genuine proof on the racetrack that Maverick Vinales can reach that level again. And it's not Maverick's fault, you know, he's physically can only do what he can, and if his shoulder isn't recuperated, he can't race that level again, then unfortunately that's how it's going to go. But Maverick is clearly fighting a losing battle, and the time is not on his side now.
There's already too much water passed on that particular bridge as far as the Vinales-KTM relationship fares. Cal Crutchlow, well, there's life in the old dog yet, isn't there? Cal Crutchlow on a brand new soft front tyre, soft rear tyre, has just got himself, when he was briefly inside the top 10. Brad Binder's just killed that particular story. Thanks very much, Brad. But Cal Crutchlow was inside the top 10 with a 1:21.121 at the ripe old age of 40, still resting a MotoGP bike around this Sachsenring circuit to a lap of the low 1:21s. Absolutely astonishing by the LCR Honda rider sub.
That is 1.4 seconds quicker than he went in free practice one this morning. He's on another fairly strong lap. I'm not sure he's going to improve on that 21.1 on this lap. We're following Crutchlow across the line. It's a 21.5 for the Brit, so he stays in P11. But yeah, with Silverstone coming up next, the other side of the summer break, and with Johan Zarco eyeing a September return, and one would expect that Britain will be represented in the MotoGP class via Cal Crutchlow, of course, former pole sitter and podium finisher there on the second weekend of August.
He's no stranger to the box here as well in the Sachsenring. Second in 2013, second in 2016, third most recently back in 2019, but that's a heck of a lap time. A brilliant time that by Cal Crutchlow. He's got Martin, Miller, Moreira, Morbidelli, Marini, Vinales, Rins, Bastianini, Mir and Mazgat, the old group behind him. It might not last, but let's enjoy it while it does. At the front as well, while we're listening to Jack, I have that fascinating chat with Pit Byra. Marco Bezzecchi did actually set the best time of the day. Bez improving to a 1:20.535, which has stretched his advantage in this session to almost 0.2 of a second.
Cal Crutchlow is also the top Honda at the moment in this session. That may also not last, because Diogo Moreira has just set the fastest first sector so far and is going very quickly. Bastianini is into the 120s, but not enough to dislodge Binder from the top 10. So Bastianini on the Tech 3 RC16, he now moves up into 11th place.
pit buyer has said, how do you replace Pedro Acosta? You don't, you can't, and they had to strike when Alex Marquez and Fabio Di Giannantonio made it clear that they were on the open market and they were interested in making the transfer to KTM. Well, KTM could not sleep on after two because they had to seize the chance to get two proven race-winning talents in MotoGP. If unfortunately it's Maverick Vinales that's left as the odd one out, it's Fabio Di Giannantonio. Well, he's already the all-time lap record holder here in the Sachsenring. Digia, the KTM-bound Italian, goes fastest with a 1:20.104. That is Di Giannantonio in full time attack mode. As you can see, he's got a brand new soft front and soft rear tyre fitted, so that's the best time of the day so far by some margin. Over 4/10 clear now of Bez.
Yeah, we haven't seen the factory prettiers go for a time attack yet. We saw a Guru while we were hearing from pit buyer put a soft rear tyre in to lift himself up into what is now 4th place. Here is Marini on a brand new soft rear tyre, looking to take top Honda runners away from Cal Crutchlow. He does much more than that. He goes up to 3rd, which now becomes 4th, as Bastianini takes his KTM into the top 3.
Just feels like, given the fact that we've got a very short, well, the shortest layout on the calendar, 3.671 kilometres, a lot of riders are going a little bit earlier than normal for soft rubber, just to make sure that there's no issues late on with traffic, trying to find a clear spot around this tight, narrow Sachsenring circuit. Never easy in time attacks. Yellow flags can also be a big factor as well. So two Italians, Bastianini and Marini, have gone early. We've got an all-Italian lockout of the top 4 right now. Digia, Bez, the Beast and Marini.
Then we've got Marc Marquez, Igor, Alex Marquez and Ralph Fernandez. That takes you down to 8th. Acosta and Bagnaia currently 9th and 10th. You've got to be in the 120s to have any hope for the top 10. I think it's going to have to be a low 120 if you're going to have any hope. That's consecutive low 120s for Fabio Di Giannantonio. That 120.237 is still 3/10 quicker than anyone else has gone this afternoon.
Maverick Vinales, you can see his name at the bottom of your screens. Well, very much it seems fighting for his future. Is he already, though, fighting a losing battle? Certainly some clear tension has appeared between Vinales and top management at KTM and Tech 3. But there he goes, right on cue. It just shows that the speed is still there. A 1:20.784 has pushed Maverick up inside the top 10. He was briefly 8th until Frankie Morbidelli intervened and found a 1:20.769, which pushes him into P6.
Yeah, but it feels like his customary appointment with Simon Crafar to come later on, Frankie Morbidelli, for impeding Pedro Acosta early in this practice session, but he's not got any thoughts of that at the moment as he goes 6th. So now outside the top 10 we have Acosta and Bagnaia 11th and 12th. Quartararo, who's done a 20.8 on the Yamaha State 13. Binder, Crutchlow, Martin down to 16th, but hasn't put a soft rear tyre in yet, so he's got much more up his sleeve. Miller Moreira rins. This man, Joan Mir, and Toprak Razgatioglu, the 2020 world champion, climbs 16 places though, and he now moves into the top 4. So it's Honda's 4th and 5th.
Yeah, both the factory Hondas then picking a fight inside that top 5 at the moment. Joan Mir confirming what we've expected the news to come for quite some time, that he is moving to Gresini Ducati in 2027. So here is Vinales, briefly as high as 8th, pushed back down to 10th, which if it stays as is, which is highly unlikely given the fact we've still got over 18.5 minutes remaining, it would be good enough to put Maverick Vinales through to Q2. Jorge Martin, not any significant move yet from the Martinator on fresh rubber. Only twice so far this season has Martin featured in Q1 in Catalonia and Brno. He has featured in all 10 Q2 sessions so far this season, though.
Would be a first Q2 of the season for Vinales if he hangs on to that. Joan Mir has rolled out of this current lap, so he won't be improving on 4th. We've got Pecco Bagnaia and Alex Marquez who are now on out laps, so it looks like we're going to see the first signs of soft tyre running from that particular pair of Ducatis.
So that's a good lap by Mir at 1:20.633. Still over half a second behind the impressive pace of Di Giannantonio, who once again is just rock solid. He's like granite at the moment, isn't he? You just know what you're going to get with Fabio Di Giannantonio. He's just right there in that top 5, top 6 battle, session after session, sprint after sprint, Grand Prix after Grand Prix. As we pick up Bagnaia then, 13th fastest. 15 riders then now are in the 120s. Those that are still seeking their first 120 of the weekend are Crutchlow, Martin, the world championship leader. Plenty more to come from the one-lap specialist. We've got Jack Miller also in the 121, so too Diogo Moreira, Alex Rins and Razgatlioglu.
For Marini in 5th, back go 1 place higher. Mir in 4th on a 20.6. Down to Binder in 15th place, just a third of a second covering them. That's what, 12 riders. And some of those are going to be on the wrong side of that cut-off from 10th backwards, and a place in qualifying 1 will be heading to them if they can't get any higher than a 20.7 at the moment, and that's of course very much aiming at a moving target. It's surely going to be a low 120 that you're going to require by the end of this session. Bagnaia clearly at this stage is not focusing on outright time attack pace. Of course, we saw him as recently as Assen leave it very, very late to get himself into the top 10. So Bagnaia clearly playing poker once again.
Banging in a big lap here is Alex Marquez. Look at Alex, bottom of your screens. He has been super quick through the first half of this Sachsenring lap. Alex surely already in Q2 in 9th place, but potentially going to be jumping up inside or challenging for that top 3 as Bagnaia calls it quits. He's coming back into pit lane. We ride on board then with Alex on the 73 Gresini Ducati. No Firmin here this weekend, unfortunately, so going on his lonesome here for the Italian team is Alex Marquez, and right on cue. Brilliant lap that by Alex, a 1:20.314 slots him up into 2nd place. Just over 2 tenths he is now behind Fabio Di Gianantonio, so KTM will be liking what they see on the time screens right now, because their future factory lineup is 1st and 2nd in this session.
Yeah, we're yet to see Marco Bezzecchi really go for it. Is this now where we see Marc Marquez go for it and show his hand? Brand new soft rear tyre for the reigning world champion as he eyes up a lap in the 119. Surely Marc Marquez will have his eye on that. He did the free practice 1 session earlier on this morning on a single set of tyres, very much kept his cards close to his chest. Now is the time for Marc Marquez to show them. Wow, just wow, what a shot that is. 200 kilometres now, maybe a little bit more, as the world's best riders plummet downhill through one of the world's scariest corners, completely blind on the entry. Marco Bezzecchi lacking confidence after his race. Look at that power sliding the Aprilia down the hill. Great shots there from our production crew. Alex Marquez was super strong through the first half of his fastest lap of the session. He was pretty good on this one as well, wasn't he? Other line he goes, and there's more time found then for the Spaniard. A 1:20.194. The field are starting to close in now on Di Gianantonio. One of those certainly going to be the reigning world champion, Marc Marquez. Let's just track him then as he ticks through this 2nd split, attacking now through the left-hander of turn 8. Yeah, this is brilliant by Marquez. If he carries this on through, he'll be in P1. He's in his domain here through left-handed corners. I mean, he's very good through right-handers, let's face it. But around left, Marc Marquez is way better than anyone else on the planet, and there are plenty of lefts around this.
Because out of nowhere, Marc Marquez leads the field by over a 1/4 of a second.
Aprilia now set about their response. Jorge Martin leaves the pit lane down in 17th place. Marco Bezzecchi in a much safer position at the moment, up in P4. Surely he's got a 1:19 up his sleeve if he can nail a lap on board that factory Aprilia. But in a season where it feels like the pendulum of pressure has been swinging between Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin, at least at this stage of the Sachsenring action. 13 minutes to go of practice. The pressure is on Martin now.
Marini in 7th place. He's only winning Q2 twice so far this season as the Italian. That in Austin, and most recently at the Grand Prix of Hungary in Balaton. 1:20.688, still keeping Luca Marini with big interest in Q2. In fact, it's got better for the number 10. Another rider who's very much in the shop window for 2027. Marini then up to 4th with a 1:20.278. And Razgatlioglu on the move. He's another rider into the 120s.
Look at this, Jack Miller on the Pramac Yamaha. Admittedly, he was weak in the 4th sector earlier on this morning, but we know that Miller can produce a special lap when he fancies it. We're waiting him across the line right now as the cross goes through. Miller goes up into 2nd place and matches identically Marc Marquez's 1:19.8.
Well, if you're doing anything at the Sachsenring and that gets close, let alone match the pace of Marc Marquez, well then you know you're riding out your skin. You are riding quite superbly. Look how pumped Miller was then, with very good reason, because Jack's never lapped Sachsenring that fast. That's a brilliant time, 1:19.841 from 93 and 43. But what about Fabio Di Gianantonio? I don't think he's going to get close to his all-time lap record of a 1:19 flat. He won't be too far away. Pedro Acosta on the money as well on the factory KTM. Digia over the line with a 1:19.674. 49, they're now back in control of this practice.
And they do have an answer to Marc Marquez, or at least they do at this stage. As Marini continues to go quickly, he improves again. Marini safeguards his 5th place, 1:20.2 for Marini. So it's now Mir outside the top 10. Mir, Moreira, Agura, Vinales and Ralph Fernandez. So 3 of the 4 Aprilias at the moment are outside the Q2 spots.
Binder as well, already inside the top 10 in 7th. He's threatening the top 4 or 5. What about Pedro Acosta? Just outside that top 5 at the moment in 6th place. He's got his teammate Binder directly behind him, and they now go 4th and 5th respectively. Good little bit of teamwork there between the factory KTM stars. And finally, having pushed all the way down to 20th, this is the first serious time attack from Jorge Martin. And of course, he makes it pay, he makes it count. A 1:20.185 from the Spaniard, up 14 places, 20-6. That's a lot more like it from the World Championship leader.
It shows how quickly it can change. Now it's Bezzecchi under pressure. He's just improved to a 20.4, but Bezzecchi's now only in 9th place. That now becomes 10th as Ralph Fernandez becomes the top Aprilia in this practice session. A 20.1 puts him 6th.
3 riders then in the 19s, 1:19.6 from Digia, a pair of 1:19.841 from Marquez and Miller. Pecco Bagnaia, we've just seen a massive leap forward in performance and time from Jorge Martin, 20th to briefly 6th. Pecco Bagnaia needs a similar significant step as well on the factory Ducati. There he is on the 63 bike, dropping down through turn 11, trying to make up some. This is where Marc Marquez made up all of his time in that 1:19.8. He was so good, as you'd expect he would be, through those last 2 left-handers. What about Morbidelli? Is this good enough for the top 10? Over the line, Frankie goes. It is 16th to 7th, but it's all eyes now on Bagnaia, who's been bumped back down to 18th spot. Over the line we go with the Italian. Oh, he creeps in by the skin of his teeth. 1:20.206 puts Pecco 10th.
And eyes on Agura and Bezzecchi too, 4th and 2nd respectively in the World Championship. They've been tumbled way out of the top 10 with that flurry of improvements. Here they both are. Agura looking to move himself up 8 places. That becomes 7 as Bezzecchi now gets himself into the 1:19s and safely up into 4th.
You might feel that that's good enough as well. There's still 9 minutes of this session remaining. Certainly at risk, certainly in the danger zone is our Assen winner, Agura. As you mentioned, there had never been in Grand Prix history since it all began in 1949 in the top class. A Japanese rider who's been able to win successive Grand Prix. As Alex Marquez, well, we know that Alex is more than capable of delivering a top lap time as it goes wrong there for Enea Bastianini. They got it all wrong going through turn 8, so he has to roll out of it. Shame as well, because Enea had set the fastest first sector of the session. He was on a flyer. How costly could that prove to be for the beast?
Felt like a cup of coffee ago. Alex Marquez was up in 2nd place. He's now 11th. We've got the top 4 in 1:19s. We've got Acosta and Binder on 20.0s. And then Fernandez, Morbidelli, Martin Agura and Alex Marquez all on 1:20.1s. Alex Marquez zeroing in now himself on a lap in the 1:19s. This is going to put him somewhere near his brother and Jack Miller, who are locked together, 2nd and 3rd on identical times. Alex Marquez does squeak ahead of the pair of them and takes 2nd.
Something happened to Agura big time in the 3rd sector, because he was motoring towards the top 10, but he's now, he lost 8 tenths, he lost about 3/4 of a second. He's coming into the pits right now, is Agura. Whether that's a deliberate ploy, whether something happened to him on that lap where he's just decided to abort and pit. There you can see your most recent MotoGP winner, the 125th in MotoGP history, Agura, to stand on the top step of the podium. Now Jack Miller will probably feel that that 1:19.841 is good enough to get Jack into Q2, as he has a little chat and a little bit of a debrief with his crew chief Giacomo Guidotti. That is a heck of a time by Jack Miller. Another rider, another very experienced rider, another proven race-winning talent in the current MotoGP crop, who is looking for employment, job-seeking right now. There's Jack Miller. fourth quickest he is at the moment then. So as it stands, as we move into this final time attack phase of practice, it's Digia, the Marquez brothers, Miller, Bezzecchi, Acosta, Binder, Ralph Fernandez, Morbidelli and Martin that are going directly through to Q2. Surely that though is going to chop and change in the final throws of this session. Pecco Bagnaia needs to find some time. He's 12th. Ayagura, Aston winner, needs to find some time. He's just outside of the top 10 in 11th. Nothing in it. 4 thousandths of a second is the gap between Martin in 10th and Agura in 11th.
And believe it or not, that is not Jack Miller's fastest Yamaha lap of the Sachsenring. He did a 19.6 here last year, but I'd hazard a guess it's somewhere near his best lap that he's done around the Sachsenring on a Yamaha to match Marc Marquez to the 1,000th of a second. So clearly under pressure, Agura, Bagnaia. We've got Quattararo down in 16th place. Moreira, who's been quite a frequent visitor to Q2 lately, he's down in 18th place on a 120.5, of course without very positive recent memories of the Sachsenring after his Moto2 exploits here last year and that collision with David Alonso. But Moreira will surely be looking for someone, most likely Marc Marquez, to get a bit of a reference from, to try and drag him into Q2.
This has just been the ideal day so far for Marco Bezzecchi. Just avoid mistakes, avoid throwing yourself on the floor once again after one of the biggest crashes of his Grand Prix career last time out in Aston. It has been squeaky clean so far from Bez. It's best of 119.9. Is that good enough to get him directly through into tomorrow morning's second qualifying session? We've said this a few times in recent months, haven't we? A big 5 minutes or so, a big ending to Friday practice for Pecco Bagnaia, the double MotoGP world champion. Needs to deliver something special late on here. He drops down the hill towards one of the 3 right-handers here in the Sachsenring. Through the Omega corner we go. Now this is more like it. So often he does tend to deliver special late laps. He does unleash the fireworks late on. He's about to unleash some very special ones here, because as he powers through turn 6, as you can see, Bagnaia up to the first sector by 9/10.
He does put some pressure on himself. Of course, he does put himself at risk of yellow flags, but wisely, Ducati sending Bagnaia out before the bulk of the field. We've got around, what, 80% of the field are on outlaps at the moment, so Bagnaia should be clear of any potential yellow flags, at the very least, on this first lap. He's 3/4 of the way through it.
You see, though, he's lost pretty much 3/10 of a second in the second split. He's going to have to get a little bit sharper in that phase of this Sachsenring circuit if he is to be troubling the lead positions. We pick him up then now, halfway around the final sector. Just one corner left for Bagnaia to negotiate. It's turn 13. He'll climb up the hill. Blind run it is to the short finish line. Over the line we go. Now that's 8th. Not what you say is fully safe and secure for the Italian. It's a 120.132, which for the time being is good enough.
Yeah, not in the 119s. You feel that's a requirement here to be anything like comfortable of a place in the top 10. Marc Marquez is also on a very strong lap. He's up at the halfway stage as Bagnaia has once again lit up the first sector. Agura improves, but once again falls short. He's down in 11th.
Yeah, he's getting further away, not by much, but he was 4 thousandths of a second away from the top 10 a few moments ago. Now that's gone up to 9,000. Fine margins. Could be a massive game change for Agura's weekend. Not exactly the easiest circuit to overtake here in the Sachsenring, particularly that first sector where it's pretty much one line as you drop down through turn 2, 3, 4, 5. Very much one line. Martin then in 6th place. As Marc Marquez, normal service has been resumed at the Sachsenring, albeit for the time being because Ralph Fernandez was on a fly, but Marc Marquez leads with a 119.394. Ralph Fernandez does indeed jump up into 2nd place. Another brilliant performance by the Trackhouse Aprilia rider. Fernandez with a 119.5. Surely he's through.
Yeah, we're now not a million miles away from the all-time lap record of a 19.0 from the Gil Antonio last year. The Honda Challenge has plateaued a bit because we've got Marini down to 14 now and Mir 16. Moreira's only gone 17th as Bastianini scrapes himself into the final Q2 spot as it stands, but Ayagura is about to change that.
Yes, he is coming and he needs this lap. Potentially P5 was our estimated guess of where I might end up on this lap. Over the line he goes. It's one place further down, but he won't care. He will not care one jot because at the moment a 119.906 is going to get Agura through into Q2.
Bagnaya's on a slower lap at the moment. He's building up for one final attempt as Joan Mir's on a slower lap for all the wrong reasons, because he's off into the gravel trap at the moment on his factory Honda. Mir now down into 16th place, trying to find a safe way of rejoining the racetrack. Has a good look behind, and there's now a crash into the fast right-hand, left-hander there for Enea Bastianini by the looks of it on his Tech 3 KTM, who will not be improving on 11th.
That could do for Bagnaia. Yellow flags coming out here late on. There's still 2 minutes, just a little bit under 2 minutes of the session remaining, but those yellow flags might be out for a fair chunk of time here as they try to clear away Enea's crash KTM, yet losing the front going into turn 8. We've seen that mistake made by the best down the years. Bagnaia was down in 13th place. Yellow flags might get cleared pretty quickly. 90 seconds remaining. Enea Bastianini is not going to go through to Q2 because when he dumped it at 8, he was down in 11th place. So session over for Bastianini.
Yeah, Bagnaia is just about to start his final time lap of the session. He's just gone over the line now, so Bagnaia's got about 40 seconds or so for those yellow flags to clear. The yellow flags are still showing up through turn 8 as they now hit that corner now. So Brad Binder, has he just got through in time? They have now cleared.
Or did Binder crucially just maybe back out of it a little bit? He comes through turn 8 now. Binder was on a charge there, wasn't he? He's just direct, keeping high, and Jorge Martin's got good track position here, hasn't he, Brad Binder? Well, he almost trips up through the turn 11 we go, and he sat up there, didn't he, Martin? He checked up. The stewards might have a close look at that one as well, as Binder clearly just had to sort of close the throttle as he dropped down through 11.
Don't do that there, I have to say. That's one of the more dicey places to get out of the throttle and sit up. Bagnaia is not improving. Look, halfway around, he's half a second down. Bagnaia's going to need some serious magic in the second half of this lap, otherwise he's heading for a third Q1 appearance, fourth Q1 appearance of the season.
He's stuck down in 13th place then. At the moment is Bagnaia. Alex Marquez doesn't really need to find time, but he is chasing it, just as you knew he would do. Already in 4th place is Alex, as Bagnaia is completely backed out of it. So that is game over. I think he felt like he wasn't going to have enough time to get to the finish line. Alex Marquez does find a PB lap time, which keeps him in at P4. Impressive work again by Alex, who is nowhere near full fitness. But calling on all his reserves, fighting spirit and talent there to make sure he eases through into Q2. So Pecco Bagnaia has taken the checker flag. Session over for the Italian. He will then feature in Q1 tomorrow morning. No problemo, no bother for the likes of Marc Marquez, Ralph Fernandez, Fabio Di Gianantonio, Alex Marquez, Jack Miller, Ayagura, Marco Bezzecchi. That 7 are the 7, the magnificent 7 who found 119 this afternoon, and surely they have booked their places in Q2. Martin 8th, Acosta 9th, Morbidelli 10th. Can't see anybody making any serious charge towards breaking up that top 10 right now.
Yeah, as it stands, and unlikely to change, we've got 4 Ducatis, 4 Aprilias, and we've of course got the Yamaha of Miller and the KTM of Acosta. That is how your top 10 looks. So the surprise is to miss out. I have to say, Bagnaia down in 13th place on the factory. He's the one Ducati, of course, not to make it through. There are only 5 of them here, with Fermin Aldeguer absent through injury. And as good as it was looking for part of that session, only the 1 KTM and no Hondas through.
Buriram, Catalonia, Hungary, and now today here in the Sachsenring, the 4 Q1 appearances so far this season for Bagnaia. But it was a stock standard Friday at the Sachsenring, wasn't it, for the reigning world champion Marc Marquez, who acknowledges what's a pretty healthy sun-kissed Friday crowd here ahead of the Grand Prix of Germany. A 119.394 job, very much well done for the factory Ducati rider. A very familiar P1 in the column next to the name of Marc Marquez here at the Sachsenring. He ends day 1 quickest, ahead of Ralph Fernandez. The good news for both Trackhouse and Aprilias is they are both safely through. What did Ayagura tell us yesterday in the pre-event press conference? I'll be happy to leave the weekend inside the top 6. Well, job done so far, mission accomplished, because he's ended day 1 in 6th place. So it is Marc Marquez, Ralph Fernandez, your Assen sprint winner, Fabio Di Giannantonio, top Ducati in the World Championship, and still Sachsenring all-time lap record holder Alex Marquez, quite brilliant once again. Jack Miller, superb, leading the Yamaha charge. Agura, Bezzecchi, Martin Acosta and Morbidelli, they are your top 10 directly through to Q2. Well, we all thought that Jack Miller might be suffering with a bit of jet lag after his exploits on the podium in last weekend's Suzuka 8-hour over in Japan, but jet lag, what jet lag for Jack? He's in Q2. Let's get the thoughts of the Bostina Borsoi without Jack.
Yeah, I don't think many people will argue against Jack Miller being performance of the day. 4 Aprilias, 4 Ducatis, Pedro Acosta and Jack Miller on the Yamaha. Gino, what a performance that is.
Yeah, it's an incredible weekend so far. I mean, also this morning he did a really great job. I'm happy about that. He got a podium in Suzuka. This is important for Yamaha, for him, and he come back here at the MotoGP with a lot of strength. So it's a good day. I'm happy for Jack.
Absolutely. Good job for the rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely stunning performance that by the Australian, a 1:19.841, which at one stage was the exact same lap time that Marc Marquez had mustered in that session. He is the fastest Yamaha by some distance, is Miller. He's 19.841. The next best Yamaha was Fabio Quartararo with a 1:20.2, so not far shy of half a second quicker than any other M1 out on circuit right now.
Yeah, there was nothing else left in that, I think, is the crux of what Jack Miller was saying to his crew chief there, Giacomo Guidotti. What performance that was. There is plenty left in Jack Miller, who has gone past the 200 mark, of course, of Grand Prix starts in 2026, but he does not want to call it a day in MotoGP at the end of this season. Marco Bezzecchi, well, I think if you'd asked him or offered him 7th place and a crash-free Friday, he would have taken that. Whether he's taking a bit of time to get off the bike due to a physical issue. Yeah, you can see them there just lowering the bike there, make it as easy as possible for Marco Bezzecchi, who is feeling that one, isn't he? Big time. Bezzecchi through in the end by just half a tenth, but he is through 7th place.
I think the message from Aprilia and from the Bez camp is, doesn't matter where you finish, just make sure you do finish after what has been a wretched, a rotten recent run for the now former World Championship leader. Jack Miller ahead of his 264th Grand Prix start. Well, numero uno, number 1, was right here 15 long years ago, all the way back in 2011 when he turned up as a fresh-faced teenager, fresh out of Australia. Job done for Agura, he'll be happy. There'll be plenty more to come. He'll feel like there's time to find out there, but his first and foremost, his major task was to make sure that he got himself directly into Q2 as he starts in his own special, calm, collected and reserved way, explain what happened to him in those 31 laps here around the Sachsenring. In fact, that was a session-high number of laps for Agura. He was busy out there this afternoon, the only rider that did north of 30 laps in that 60-minute practice session.
Yes, crew chief Giovanni Mattarolo getting more words out of Agura than you got out of him yesterday in the press conference.
Yeah, sometimes he can be a bit of a tough interview. Can Agura? I have to say I do love him for it, because he really does not. He does not care, does he? He's not here for the headlines, he's not here for the fame, he's not here for the attention. He just loves racing motorcycles. We love watching Agura race motorcycles, particularly when he brings the kind of form which carried him to that maiden victory in Assen 2 weeks ago. But Marc Marquez, who else could he be that leads day 1 here at the Sachsenring?
Went to form, didn't it? Marc Marquez, fastest on day 1 in Germany. Ralph Fernandez keeping up his good recent run. 2nd for Trackhouse ahead of Fabio Di Giannantonio. Alex Marquez a fine 4th. Jack Miller, the performance of the day, in 5th, ensuring that Yamaha are represented in Q2. Agura 6th ahead of Bezzecchi and Martin for the factory Aprilia squad, both on near enough a 1:20. Pedro Acosta and Frankie Morbidelli also through, although Morbidelli has a trip to the stewards later on for getting in the way of Pedro Acosta. Acosta is the sole KTM to advance. The headline name missing the top 10 in Q2, unquestionably, is Pecco Bagnaia in P13.
Cal Crutchlow at one stage got himself inside that top 10 as he went early and found a 1:21.121. Can't imagine there's been too many times at Cal's lap the Sachsenring faster than that. So it was a hard front medium rear tyre which Marquez started that session on. Did a lot of good work there, doing sort of high to low 120s, 121s. His best work coming on fresh rubber at the start of his fifth run of the session, a 1:19.394.
Ralph Fernandez putting plenty of laps, best part of 2/3 distance on a hard front tyre, also doing a lot of work on the soft rear in the early part of the session. The soft rear was also useful to him, a brand new soft rear late, so got him into the mid-119s in a very comfortable second.
A pair of P3s today then on day one here in Germany for Fabio Di Gianantonio. He did a lot of good work early on the hard front medium rear tyre. And he was, as always, lightning quick, wasn't he, on fresh rubber at the end of the session. A whole bunch of 119s there from Didier. His best, a 119.674, so him cruised into Q2.
And Alex Marquez also putting in a lot of hard work on the hard front tyre, putting plenty of laps on the medium rear too, which might not be the race option for Sunday. The soft rear, though, had to be used to get him into Q2, and he also got himself one of 7 riders into the 119s.
A tight and twisty trip through Sector 1 saw Acosta lead the way on the factory KTM, ahead of Bagnaia and Binder.
Super close in the second sector with Fabio Di Gianantonio holding a narrow advantage.
Track really opens out through Sector 3, and it's advantage Agura ahead of Fernandez and Marc Marquez.
And Marc Marquez's total advantage over the lap is 0.166 of a second. As you can see, almost all of it in Sector 4.
Well, MotoGP is back in Germany, and once again back on top of the standings at his beloved Sachsenring. It is the reigning world champion Marc Marquez,
Ya,
who this
sudah
weekend is
selesai
looking
ya
to make it
praktisnya
10
ya.
wins in
Makasih
MotoGP.
yang udah
around
nonton,
one of his
lanjut
favourite
besok-besok
tracks,
lagi
Makada.
ya.
Perfect